Okay, so
through their
that
building.
was,
They created like a big opening.
every day for 5 days.
So yeah, that happens. That's done.
Finish that last
It's
week.
not ideal, but sometimes that's so there's several that yeah, absolutely, it happens all the time.
Amazingly upbeat.
So it's usually attached to a development of some sort. You know, the biggest expense is utilities because you have to relocate any utilities
Husband and boyfriend, they went.
out of the area. You're probably going to have sewer, you're going to have electricity, you're going to
Then they
have
found,
communications.
he's been great.
Maybe gas.
Taking all of their things, and if we can't,
They have to follow the process of the code. You go to a planning and zoning board, and then goes to commission. It's like a whole, it's like a whole thing.
Alex, can you hear me?
I have an item for the gondola building.
because that was during COVID, and
Yeah, but I don't hear you.
want to get near Larry because he works, he
Uh,
manages Joanna's Market. I don't know what's going to happen with Medicaid now. Yeah. And they help out too. But they say that they have to work to get the money.
you need one, right?
I see you. How are your kids? That's not possible.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
So anyway, maybe one day.
Cool. You should talk
Testing
to
1, 2, 3.
Text him first. Oh, yeah. No.
Testing 1.
I don't know where she went, but she went somewhere in Texas. Yeah. I remember that. I cried all the way to the airport. When I dropped Jonathan off at Brandeis, I cried all the way to the airport, on the plane. I got home. Danny was, actually, I was okay. Danny went to Brown. He got into the PLME program, and so he got right into medical school. And yeah, he's a path.
Alex, can you hear me?
Yeah, at Emory. And,
Now talk to me.
he just
Nope, you're not coming into the chambers.
got married a year ago, and they just had a baby. I have 9. I have 8 children, and the oldest is 20.
Hey, my goodness, how are you? Jesus, it's been so long. You work here?
Yeah, can you believe that?
Congratulations.
I said that, and then I thought,
No, it's congratulations.
it is. It's very
You guys are here? I thought you were like. Okay. Right, I thought you were out there.
I couldn't have done that with any of my husbands.
Oh, what's this? That guy? Are you kidding?
And then, he's pretty easy. He's pretty frail, man. And and anyhow. No, wait.
List.
Oh, yes.
Where's my phone? Oh, are you done?
All right, folks.
I know, me too. I'm trying to use them more comfortable. So pretty.
I need the court reporter. Can I start with that?
Oh, she's not here yet. I'll be darned.
I'm still so sensitive to the heat.
So, no meeting until she gets here.
Ms. Bonilla? Hang on. Let me go find out where our court reporter is.
Okay, back to just walking with a cane and sometimes not anything.
Ms. Bonilla?
Do you go to, did he start finish? No, he stopped. But he exercises, he does all the stuff. Oh, he does? He's good about that. Oh, good.
It's now 4:03. Are we waiting for the court reporter?
The court reporter assigned to our meeting is stuck in traffic on I-95, and she will not make it by 4. They're sending someone else who's currently en route, but she'll be here about 4:20.
Okay. Ms. Lawyer, what can we do in the meantime?
I'm sorry, at what time, Miss?
4:20,
20.
Who's gonna be here at 4:20?
the court reporter.
It's the first day of school.
Yeah, for all of us.
We can begin with discussion. Generally, these are items we like to have transcripts for to the extent that they go to the commission. So whether or not they're required, I think it's something that's helpful to have for the commission. So I don't know if you want to take a brief recess until the court reporter appears, or if you want to, generally, even all the introductory information that you share is part of the record for any possible appeals. So I would suggest that we wait until the court reporter appears, if that's acceptable to the board. I think in the interest of time, we need to
What
wait.
about going through the process, calling a meeting to order, da-da-da-da-da-da?
All of that is generally a part of the official record and transcript. So to the extent that anybody ever appeals any of these items, that information is already available in the transcript.
Take any votes or anything without that?
There's no requirement for our general meeting minutes, et cetera, that there be like approval of the minutes, for instance, that there be a transcript of that. It's just generally helpful to have that for processing the minutes. We do have a video available, so we could start the meeting and do the consideration of the minutes. I would just note that any introductory information you give about ex parte communications, the role of the board, et cetera, will then not be made a part of the transcript if and when somebody needs that transcript to appeal anything.
Okay, so then we'll just call the meeting to order and move through that, not discuss any of those items that are on the list, and then we can discuss board material.
I'm not sure what on the agenda you're referring to that's the board material besides the approval of the minutes.
Discussion of something, of anything.
I'm sorry, Mr. Maxwell, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, like a board discussion.
We could. Again, generally, that information is transcribed and sent to the city commission, so it wouldn't be a part of the official transcript. It would only be a part of the meeting minutes.
That'll be fine. Okay, great, then. Where are you? Yeah, we'll go down to these discussion items and stuff like that. Also, I think we need to do the elections for the chair, vice chair today, too.
No,
What's that?
we're still missing a member. We only have 8.
100%?
Why not? You're still the chair.
Okay. Mumble. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I hope that all of you heard the discussion. Our court reporter's been delayed, so we're going to move forward. We're going to be delayed in coming up with in discussing the actual public hearing. We're going to try to do the things that we would normally do at the end beforehand, which is not part of the official record. So
Mr. Maxwell, can I just ensure that we're recording this video I think we are not yet either. I just wanted to make sure that we have an accurate transcript and record, whether or not it's the actual court reporter. So if you could just wait a moment, I think we're trying to make sure that this video is recorded as well.
Okay, let me know when that occurs, if you would, please.
It's 2 pounds. Through the agenda. Yeah, I think the right side is, there you go.
Are we ready to record the meeting? Okay. Mr. Maxwell, if we could let Evelise please begin recording the audio, then we can begin with those items. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Oh, 2 tires true. Did you ever meet him? He was a Biltmore grad student. Yeah.
Are we recording? Are we recording?
Okay. Yes, Mr.
Okay.
Maxwell.
Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We're going to call the meeting to order. Good afternoon. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Coral Gables Historic Preservation Board. We are residents of Coral Gables and are charged with the preservation and protection of historic or architecturally worthy buildings, structures, sites, neighborhoods, and artifacts, which impart a distinct historical heritage of the city. The board is comprised of 9 members, 7 of whom are appointed by the commission, 1 by the city manager, and the 9th is selected by the board and confirmed by the commission. 5 members of the board constitute a quorum, and 5 affirmative votes are necessary for the adoption of any motion. Any person who acts as a lobbyist pursuant to the City of Coral Gables Ordinance Number 2006-11 must register with the city clerk prior to engaging in lobbying activities or presentations before city staff, boards, committees, and/or the city commission. A copy of the ordinance is available in the office of the city clerk. Failure to register and provide proof of registration shall prohibit your ability to present to the Historic Preservation Board on applications under consideration this afternoon. Lobbyist is defined as an individual, corporation, partnership, or other legal entity employed or retained, whether paid or not, by a principal who seeks to encourage the approval, disapproval, adoption, repeal, passage, defeat, or modifications of any ordinance, resolution, action, or decision of any city commissioner, any action, decision, recommendation of the city manager, any city board or committee, including but not limited to quasi-judicial, advisory board, trust, authority, or council, or any action, decision, or recommendation of the city personnel during the time period of the entire decision-making process of the action, decision, or recommendation, excuse me, which foreseeably will be heard or reviewed by the city commission or a city board or committee, including but not limited to quasi-judicial, advisory board, trust, authority, or council. Presentations to this board, which is quasi-judicial, are subject to the city's False Claims Ordinance, Chapter 39 of the City of Coral Gables City Code. I now officially call the City of Coral Gables Historic Preservation Board meeting of, what's today, the 15th? 14th. No, August 14th, 2025 at 4:11 p.m. Present today are, let me see who's there. To my far left, Marlon Ebert. Next to her, Kelly Shield. Following Michelle Cuero-Dane and Alejandro Silva, who's our vice chair. To the end, Mrs. Anna Alvarez, Donna Spain, and Cesar Garcia Pons. Absent today is Margaret Rolando. Approval of the minutes. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes held on, July 10th, I think it is, if you'll excuse me. Yes, July 10th, 2025.
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion to defer.
There's a motion to defer. Would you please explain?
Yes, I'd like to add some additional information and explanation specifically on the motions. I'd like a motion to defer so that that can be corrected.
We have a motion by Ms. Janay. We have
The
a second.
minutes, can we just do it now?
I'd have to go back and look again at the exact language to be accurate. I could try, but I'd rather defer.
I'll second the motion to defer.
We have a motion by Ms. Janay, second by Mr. Silva.
I had the language if you want it.
No, if she wants to
No,
defer.
let's just go on and do that. I think we can do a voice vote on this.
Correct?
Okay. Yes? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Have one opposition, Ms. Spain. Okay. Ex parte communications. Please be advised that this board is a quasi-judicial board, and the items on the agenda are quasi-judicial in nature, which requires board members to disclose all ex parte communications. An ex parte communication is defined as any contact, communication, conversation, correspondence, memorandum, or other written or verbal communication that takes place outside a public hearing between a member of the public and a member of a quasi-judicial board regarding matters to be heard by the quasi-judicial board. If anyone has made any contact with a board member, when the issue comes before the board, the member must state on the record the existence of the ex parte communication, the party who originated the communication, and whether the communication will affect the board member's ability to impartially consider the evidence presented. Deferrals. Are there any items on the agenda that have been deferred? Hearing none, there are none. Swearing in. If any persons in the audience will be testifying or speaking today, please rise, raise your hand to be sworn in. All right, okay, let me go to the agenda. Okay, the first item on our agenda, since our court reporter has braved traffic.
Mr. Chair, we would like to move 405 Vizcaya, the COA application, to the first item, please.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that with the historical designation. Our first item is local historical designation, case file I'm sorry, what?
She wants to move this one.
To the public hearing.
The next one, the special.
Mr. Maxwell, there's been a request to hear the certificate of appropriateness prior to the designation.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so shift in the agenda. Okay, we're going to then hear case file COA SP 2025-018, an application for the issuance of a special certificate of appropriateness for the property at 405 Vizcaya Avenue, a contributing resource within the French Normandy Village Historic District, legally described as portions of Lot 10 and 11, Block 4, the French Village of Coral Gables, according to the plat book 29, page 71, Miami-Dade Records. Applicant request after the fact design approval for the installation of impact-resistant windows and doors.
Mr. Maxwell, if you don't mind, for the record, I just want to clarify. I know we have a little bit of a different board makeup than the last two times this item is before us, and I just wanted Ms. Alvarez, who's joining us for the first time on this item, in order to sort of condense the presentations down, if she could just confirm if she's reviewed the prior information and presentations, I think that would be helpful in condensing the amount of time needed for presentations on this item.
Yes, I've watched the recordings of the last two meetings.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Maxwell.
Thank you.
Okay, if you can bring the
Kyle.
PowerPoint up, please. So I wasn't going to give you all a full presentation for the third time. I'll just do a brief intro. Again, this is the location of the property in question. It's a contributing structure within the French Normandy Village Historic District that was designated in 1987. They were designed by John and Colton Skinner, constructed circa 1926-27. So as I mentioned before, we don't have a 40s photograph or a 20s photograph of this house in specific. These are two early photos of the village, and on the right are the permit drawings that were originally permitted. So this was how we found the property upon inspection. The application is for after-the-fact design approval for the installation of impact-resistant windows and doors. And they're here specifically for the reflectivity of the glass and the muntin pattern. So as you'll see, this is the inspection where the muntins and the glass did not match what was specified. I went out last week and they have corrected the muntins to match what was on the permitted set of plans. So the only issue that remains for the board to consider is now the glass, the reflectivity of the glass. So I will turn it over to the applicant.
Can we ask questions at this time, or we wait? I have questions. May I ask questions to Kara?
Yes, Ms. Dene.
Hi.
Question.
I think it's important, and I just wanted to follow up and make sure that it's in this record, maybe a different slant. And you can answer yes or no, or expand if you wish. Coral Gables is a certified local government, so we have to abide by the federal regulations and the Secretary of Interior standards. And these are the standards that are the sole criteria to be used in determining whether to grant a COA. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is there any interpretation of the standards that would permit the type of colored reflective glass that was placed in this case in a window on our historic building?
So kind of a loaded question. The standards talk about recommendations for glazing to not be reflective or tinted. In other municipalities, they have adopted design guidelines that reference low E glass and the use of low E glass up to a certain percentage. We did not have that in our case, so we just say no low E.
Right, and I think in those other circumstances, it's a 0.79%, and the current SB 70 windows were approximately 60 to 64, so they would not meet any of those standards in any event. But I want to refer to the exact information or the exact standards that says that where replacement is required, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities. So based upon that statement with regard to color and reflectivity, is there any way that this would be an exception and be approved under the standards?
It depends on how you interpret that standard. It's applicable to every aspect of a building. And if we went specifically by the standard on every instance, then the windows would have to be the same frame color, the same muntin width, the same, I mean, everything would have to be exactly the same. The sticking point in the standard, as it's explained in these technical briefs, is the reflectivity of glass. So the material is glass. We're not changing material. We're only changing what you see from the exterior. Does that make sense? It's an interpretation of the standard.
So it's more like a visual approach, because you actually stated, correct, that you recommend not granting the certificate of appropriateness because now, based upon the reflectivity, the Mutton situation has been resolved, although I do have some issues with regard to the misstatements and false statements made that I will address later.
That was, yes, we recommended denial of the COA because of the glazing.
Okay, and if this window, for example, was on my street or someplace else in Coral Gables, it would not be granted a certificate of appropriateness, correct?
No, not necessarily. So a non-contributing residence, yes, we've allowed different types of glass on those types of houses. On a let's say a 1960s house, which is much more modern and had a different type of glass when it was built, yes, maybe.
Okay.
So it's not an across the board, everything is a case-by-case basis. And in this particular house, that glazing does not match the style of the house. That was our finding.
I see. So you're actually looking back at the homes back in the 1920s when this was built, and based upon that historic fact, the standards would not have been met. I understand. Okay, thank you. I just have a couple final questions. So window fenestration is a crucial part of historic fabric of a building, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when you sent the certificate of appropriateness to the applicants, it specifically stated, I was looking at the record again, clear, no tint, no reflectivity, and that was attached to the letter that you mailed to them in October, correct?
It's attached to the COA and the permit, yes.
Okay, thank you.
If I may. Hello, Anna Pernis. I'm back from leave, preservation officer. And again, I also did review the videos that, for the last two cases for the application, and I appreciate everyone's thoroughness and discussion on the items. There's a couple things, and you kind of brought some of it up, and I think Kara even explained, is that these are meant to be guidelines. They're meant to be interpreted by the office and by our staff, and that's why we look at them all on case-by-case basis. So it's important to us that, we know that these aren't creating a precedent, and that we're working with applicants to kind of get to our the best efforts of preservation that we can, right? So this property, we know they didn't remove original features of the building, they didn't damage any original characteristic, they didn't change opening sizes, this is a reversible and likely will be replaced again within the next 10 to 20 years because these windows do not last forever. And will come before us. So, we know that going through their application and having looked at the district itself, there have been multiple iterations of different approvals over time because technology changes, materials change, products change. Low E their clear goes from, 80% to 10%. So it just depends on where you find the sweet spot. And so I think what Kara was saying is that some municipalities have been able to go so specific in their design guidelines to say, you know what, 60 works. 80 is too much, 10 is too little. So we haven't gone that far. I think that's something that we need to look at, and especially in a district like this where we can see, because the houses are the same and they're right next to each other, that we see the bronze, the white, the clear glass, the beige glass, the tinted glass, the reflective. I see Kara's reflection in one picture and not in the other. It's just the angle you're looking at it. And here they have blinds, so you're clearly seeing the color of the glass. That, we can make those changes and do a study and create either district appropriate guidelines or some sort of plan that a homeowner can pick up and get and say, okay, moving forward, this is what's going to happen, and implement those within our process. But it's important that when we do that, we're using, obviously, the Secretary of Interior standards and any new technical briefing that has come out
Great.
in the last 25 years.
If we want to go there, then others have interpreted the Secretary of Interior standards with regard to low E to apply only to 79% or greater, and that's not what these windows were. So are you saying then that maybe it should be reconsidered, the actual reflectivity of these particular windows, or that your original determination to deny the certificate of appropriateness,
In this case,
you still stand by the
I'm
staff
kind of looking at the
report?
overall standards that we look at and how we review window applications. I wasn't part of the application for the review, so I can't speak to the specificity of the window that is installed there.
Okay.
Just from what was presented through the presentations the last two meetings.
Right.
But-
But you would feel that highly reflective, I believe even Ms. Rolando was commenting on how highly reflective these
But
particular
I don't know if
windows
this is the highest reflectivity that they have. So what is this compared to?
Okay, but
Is there another one that maybe is mirrored?
Maybe just visual, since you don't have those standards yet, although if you look up the SB 70, it says between 60 and 64%, which is way below the 79% that some cities permit. But that's not the point, like you're saying.
Yeah,
right?
that's why I'm looking
So
at the case that we have
It'd be more
before us today.
visual it'd be more visual, and then I'm always all about fairness. So I feel that, when these rules are enforced on others in the community, that it's not fair, except if you have something specific to make an exception.
No, I think you're right there, and there is also, in this case, you're also looking at the district, right? So what has been allowed and what was been fair for others in that district, and what's going to be fair for the homeowner in this unit.
Right, and we got a great explanation already twice about why there was a distinction and the neighbor was permitted. There was a particular circumstance in that case because it was a staff error. But I'm not, I'd like to address that later, but I don't see that here.
Okay. And I would like to let the applicant do their presentation in the regular order.
Yeah, but this is basically back to where we were before. It's not the applicant's fault. This is the fault of his contractor. The contractor ordered these windows before the permit was issued.
Yes.
And he's putting the owner in a very bad situation. In other words, he's making the owner the bad guy, okay? And at the last meeting, it was my understanding that they were going to change the windows and that the window company had agreed to that.
I heard that comment. You said you were willing to replace just the window. You could keep the frame at the last meeting.
And so
I
this
think
is...
that was the window, it wasn't you specifically.
But
The
yours
glass.
here.
That was the vendor.
The vendor agreed to that.
Yes.
I will just note, this is a state-approved vendor. The things they say they do and the things they do are not exactly the same. And so I am going to posit for you guys that if you deny, I'm going to be forced to sue the vendor. I know they said yes, but that's the salesperson, project manager. We've been speaking to the owner who's sort of reneged on that and then has since come around. But I don't think it's obviously the case. I also know getting them to put the muttons in, which honestly is so easy, has been pulling teeth. I mean, the amount of time that we're spending away from our jobs and our kids dealing with the pettiest thing, it's unbelievable. So while yes, it is possible to be remedied, I really don't.
But that's not the issue.
Well, if I may, the violation that gets cited to the property owner. We cannot
spend a lot of time in this board making up for where a gentleman like this comes before us because his contractor has violated the code and violated the permit. So
happens quite
I think
often.
it's very disturbing, that this gentleman has to be here now for the third time on this because this is the third request for this COA.
And they're the ones being affected by the violation.
If you'll excuse me, please.
Sorry.
His contractor's not here. And so this is the fault of his contractor.
Mr. Chair, can we have the applicant make the presentation?
It's good to see you guys again.
Please introduce yourself again, please.
My name is Harris Levine from 405 Vizcaya. Camilla, my wife, couldn't be here. She's on a work trip. This is, by the way, a photo with the blinds up. I took a more flattering, less reflective photo. So as you guys all know, we're a family of four, 2 kids under 4. We bought our house in 2021. This is our first home. We love this home. We love French Normandy Village. We bought a historic home on purpose. We're committed to preserving the home and its character. As I mentioned before, we put a roof on it with a permit. When we did that, you guys gave us very clear instructions about how to go about it and do it, and we did it right. Michael, this, who is at fault? The vendor is certainly at fault, but there are lots of other, this is a sort of a perfect storm. I mean, I have concerns with the state. I have concerns with this process. I have concerns, all of it is, there's just a lot of blame. And actually my own, I should have paid more attention and I should have, I just didn't think this was going to be as complicated. Anyway, I just want to note also our case is the opposite of 1021 Hardy. We're doing everything we can. We're putting tons of money into our home. So what we did, we applied for and received something called the My Safe Florida Home Program to install hurricane impact glass. We've been wanting to do the windows for years. We weren't going to do it, and we got approved for that, and so we did it. We hired a vendor from the state of Florida's approved vendor list, perhaps incorrectly assuming that means you'd get a good vendor. We also made several attempts during permitting to get guidance from the Historic Preservation Board, Office before installation and did not receive any response. Because our home is a contributing resource in French Normandy Village, we intentionally chose the same brand as our neighbors. I have a neighbor here, Nancy, who also has ESW windows. We chose the same frame color, bronze, even though our direct neighbor, the former house of Dolly McIntyre, they have white frames. All the new people have bronze frames, so we went with bronze frames. And then all of the other houses have tint, and so all with permits, all with approval from this board. And so I've condensed this because we've said this now 3 times. Clear glass is inconsistent with the other homes on Vizcaya that have hurricane impact glass. So 400 Vizcaya, which is across the street from us, this was the house that the permit was approved in 2020. They have low E. It's the same exact low E as the one we have, so also SB 70. 401 Vizcaya, which was done in 2013, that's Nancy. On her permit, it says brown tint on the windows. And so, but you'll see there also the same color frames and same brand. 48 Vizcaya, I don't have any information, but it looks like ESW windows with brown tint. And then 416 Vizcaya, so this is not this is also low E. This was done, I don't know the date, but this is Sally Jude's home, who I know took this issue extremely seriously, but also low E on the same street. And so 2 with low E, 2 with brown tint. The other homes on the street have not installed hurricane impact glass. So this is what those windows look like. That's 404 Vizcaya, 409 Vizcaya, and 413 Vizcaya. So comparable approvals demonstrate consistent treatment of similar properties within the same context, and we shared detailed evidence, and I have it in the appendix if you guys want to see that. One note that I also want to make is the windows are a marked improvement from what was there before. So if you look on the left, the windows were in bad shape. They were also single hung, which is not what you guys would approve today, so we brought that up to code to look like casement. Also, when I was seeing the drawings from 1926, this was actually a horse stable, so there weren't even windows here. Anyway, and they're also, I think the most important thing is their hurricane impact, which preserves the home. We've had a lot of support from neighbors. I have a neighbor here. We've had neighbors at every meeting. This quote from Olga, who is living in the house we share a wall with in Dolly's former home. We're a family that is all about historic preservation. If you see this house, it does not look like it's tinted in any way, unless you get photos from the right angle. That's my ad. If you see this house in person, it absolutely looks like the spirit of the moment. I very much support that this be approved. The spirit of historic preservation is for technology to go improving and embracing it when it's better for the house to have protection from hurricanes and from heat. I would also note Vizcaya it's all concrete, there's no trees. It gets really, really hot. Had there been a glass that had helped us keep our houses cooler, it would have been used. We did finally, we were supposed to do this for the last meeting, but like I said, it's pulling teeth. The muttons have been corrected to match the approved drawings. We're still dealing with them because there's like workmanship issues. Staff inspection confirmed compliance with the muttons, so the windows have now passed all inspections except this one issue pending your approval. Like I said earlier, we only did the windows because of the My Safe Florida Home program. The state will refund us $10,000 of the more or less $22,000 we've already spent. We must request our final inspection before August 16th, 18 months after approval. We've asked multiple times. There are no more extensions. Today is August 14th. We have 2 days to resolve this matter and request our final inspection, or we lose $10,000. I know you guys know this, but for context, it's been 9 months since the windows were installed. So 9 months of the 18 months has just been talking about whether we could, and losing $10,000 because this wasn't resolved in time is an undue hardship equivalent to a year of property tax, 2 years of homeowner's insurance, 3 months of child care, 5 months of health care. We've already paid a $1,500 fee and denial may require us to sue our vendor, which is an outcome that is expensive, no one wins, and is certainly unlikely to make us whole, even in the event that we win. We respectfully ask for approval. We understand the role of historic preservation, but I'm asking to not be denied advances in technology, but also practicality. We love our home. We've tried to follow the rules. we request for the COA in keeping with our neighborhood and the spirit of preservation. And then I am really serious that in the event that you guys want to establish standards, we'd love to volunteer, because it also annoys us too, that everybody has different windows and different colored glass and different paint and whatnot. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask him a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Did you say that the windows in the homes that have the clear glass do not have impact windows?
On Vizcaya, the only homes without a tint are the ones that do not have impact windows.
That's very interesting. So the ones that have impact glass are the ones that have the tints on them?
All four, yeah. And then if you go around the bend, they have 2 of the 3 have tint or reflectivity. One actually has low E, and then if you go around the other side, I believe they don't have.
That's interesting. So staff has approved, ever since the impact glass, staff has approved tinted windows for this. Is that true?
For the neighboring buildings?
Yes.
Well, if
Yes.
if the others aren't impact,
Right. Those are the ones that we had talked about before, that I think Karen mentioned that some of those approvals were over 10 years old and that some of the original products only had tinted as an option. And truly, even today, we have arguments with window manufacturers of what their clear is.
Right.
And their clear is a very, very light gray. And we've asked them to bring us product samples, and they write clear, and this is clear, and your thing says clear, and then the windows got installed, and there's always some sort of light gray shading to it to meet some sort of, light transmittal.
I just wanted that clarified. Thank you.
Okay. Any other board member? If not, we'll open it up to the audience. Okay.
I do have some questions.
Okay, Ms. Dene?
I was reading over all the documents again, and I just had a concern, because I know it's in the prior records.
We didn't do comments.
We were going to open it, but Ms.
Questions?
Dene asked to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. No, public record's not closed.
Yeah, I know that in your presentation and in the prior meetings, there was a lot of discussion about problems with the historic staff, because you were trying to reach out to get guidance and you didn't do it. I didn't get the guidance that you needed. So one of my questions is, so in September, October, when you were reaching out, making all these phone calls, what actually were you asking? What was the information that you needed in that moment to provide you with guidance?
I don't know. I mean, we were trying to talk to someone to figure out what to do and what's the way to move forward.
Okay, because
I don't remember.
Because my point is, it wouldn't seem to make any difference because you'd already ordered the windows. Were you going to then tell preservation officers that you had a window that you now saw was non-conforming? Or why would that have meant that staff,
I don't know.
our preservation officers, were doing a worse job than the people that helped you with the roof? That was
My complaint is that I never heard any direction from anybody at any point until after the windows were installed. And so,
quite a time afterwards, right? It wasn't until the inspection came out.
correct.
But this is a problem that I'm having, so I'm looking
I
back.
think if I'm going to try and, my question probably would have been like, why is our permit not being approved? Like, what is, that's what I would have been
That's fair.
asking. Yeah.
That's very fair. So then, really, I just want to make sure the record's clear. There was nothing inappropriate done by a lack of response or fault on the part of our historic preservation officers, because that was kind of the thought. But I have other questions. So I'm looking back at February 20th, 2024, when you signed your proposal with the window people, and your signatures on this proposal. In that moment, you had to put down a deposit to have the windows ordered. And according to the testimony of your window representative, manufacturer, I think it was even at the first meeting, he testified that you were the ones pushing and wanted to have the windows ordered timely so that you could qualify for the funds. So, in other words, you knew the windows were being ordered back in 2024, right?
I knew the way. So I definitely remember wanting to get this done within 18 months. I am not a Windows professional. I am not a home repair professional. I wanted to move forward. The question of a deposit, I assume that's standard every time you sign a contract. Every contract I've ever signed for housework, they ask for money up front.
I guess the point is that.
I didn't think anything was being done untoward. I know they ordered the windows,
Well-
but I didn't think that was like inappropriate. I said, you know, what do you got? They were like, all right, I think what they said was, we got engineering, we're gonna go ahead and order the windows.
Okay, so I just don't want there to be a wrong impression somehow that you did not even know the windows were being ordered. And then I'm going to get to the actual type of the windows.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Knight,
I feel like I'm under
if I can
cross-examination.
recall, we don't have the minutes, but I remember the window manufacturer saying that it is their standard practice that as soon as they receive engineering approval, they order the windows. That doesn't mean that the applicant may or may not have been asking to move it forward, but I seem to remember that. I don't know if we want to look at records, but
I remember that as well, that's correct, but he also made this other specific statement, and I just think it goes to knowledge, so. I have another question, and I asked you this at, I think, the last hearing. I said prior to November, because the idea that I was getting, and I'm sure my fellow board members were getting, prior to November, I asked you, did you have any idea that there was a problem with the windows, that they were non-conforming? And the answer was no. You had no information. You had no idea. Okay, so I'm just going to talk to you about the permit site drawings. Well, this is dated March 19th, 2024. And it says that the glass color is to be clear, no tint, no reflectivity. That was in March of 24, and you signed this document. Now, we asked, somebody asked the window manufacturer, well, why would you put that on here if that's not true? And there was some comment about how, well, because that was what historic preservation would require. I guess my point is, we didn't know that the windows had not been ordered until June, and neither did staff, but you had to have known back in March that the windows were ordered and that it clearly said that it was going to be clear, no tint, no reflectivity. You signed this document in particular that states that. I have another document that you signed specifically, and both of them, one of them said that it was based upon, this one. The other permit that was filed on February 20th, you signed this one and it's notarized, and it specifically says under penalties of perjury and the City of Coral Gables false claims and presentation ordinances. So I have several documents that are indicating to me, and looking at the prior testimony, that you did know there was some sort of a problem with the windows. And when you finally found out that there was an issue, which is established in October 21st, 2024, because you got the letter that said the same thing, no tint, no reflectivity, you didn't reach out to historic preservation at that time and install the windows instead. So just for you to understand, can you respond to all those concerns? Yeah.
Well, I don't remember. I didn't really pay tons of attention. I mean, that's the reality is the vendor brought over documents. I signed a bunch of documents. Let's get the windows done. They're in line with what the neighbors were doing. I now know about 10,000 times more about this than I did at the start. And it is honest to God, I didn't know anything. Nobody told me what we were supposed to be doing, because if somebody told us, we would have done that.
But when you got this, at least in October, which is quite many months before we were advised about the window installation, in October you knew, because you got a letter, a real clear letter. It wasn't to the window installer, stating that these were the conditions: no reflectivity, clear, tinted. So
I don't think I
you know,
I didn't pay attention.
there's you can understand our problem, because where I'm coming from is, as a matter of law, when you sign these documents under penalties of perjury, you can't say I didn't read it, you can't say I didn't know. You have a duty to make sure, to the best of you can, that the statements are true, and it was very clear, and sorry, no pun intended, in all of these documents. So that's what makes it harder for me, and also based upon our requirements. So and I really took issue with you saying that you followed city guidelines and then were accusing our staff officers of somehow not doing something right? Because had you reached out to them, multiple opportunities
I did. I have the call records from
from
T-Mobile.
in September and October.
Yeah.
Okay. Why didn't you reach out to them before then? Before you put down the money and said, yeah, hurry up and order these windows because we're going to lose our funding.
I don't know.
Having reviewed permits quite often, I will tell you that the majority of our contact is with a window company and not a homeowner, because they assume that the window company knows what they're doing, is taking care of it.
And they're an
So-
authorized
So
representative.
that's, I mean, to be fair, that's the most of the time we deal with window companies, because the homeowner is like, I like these windows, get me these windows, do your thing. So whether or not he knew, what he didn't know, I don't know, but we were in contact with his window company,
That I
and they knew.
understand, and I would be okay with that, except for the representation that somehow something wrong was being done, which it wasn't. But I just want to ask you then, is there any way that you could just work with your installer and have them replace just the glass and keep your frames? Is that not an option? You're saying you would have to go to a lawsuit to do that?
I think it's likely we go to lawsuit. I think it's a certainty that I lose $10,000.
If I may, I think I would also have some big concern with that, because these windows are usually built as a unit, and taking them apart to meet that impact requirement just seems like a nightmare in a few years. However they put in that new glazing is not going to be the same way as when it's manufactured in the shop. And that's going to create problems with leaking and everything else that can happen.
So we're
under
looking
there.
at replacing the
So
whole
really,
window.
it would be, I think, a concern for us, and then what kind of an engineering does that take? It's another nightmare for you guys, I understand, to get the installation, if it's the full unit or just the glass, but really, I think for the impact rating, there seems to be there might be some issues there too.
Okay, so do you believe in this circumstance then there was an error made when the certificate of approval, this second one?
Wait, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm confusing
The
myself.
COA?
In the staff report that recommends against approving the certificate of appropriateness.
No, I'm not saying that there was a mistake made. Again, I wasn't part of that application. I'm here kind of picking up the pieces and understanding where we are. I think
Okay.
that with the recommendations that have been made and the efforts of the homeowner, do I find this to be a detriment to the historic district? No. I think that the mutton replacement is a big factor. This is an improvement from what was there before. And again, like the guidelines say, this is something that's going to be replaceable over the future and did not directly affect his original historic fabric on the structure.
Well, then that would be contrary to what the staff report
Then,
says.
as preservation officer, that I will make this, I'm on the record, I swore myself in, then yes.
Okay, so the
This is my
high, the
testimony.
high reflectivity is not an issue.
It's a case-by-case basis.
That adversely affects the historic fabric of the building.
I think that you want me to say a yes or no answer, but I don't think it is a yes or no for these types of applications. We look at them very thoroughly, and we have to look at them
In
on a
this
case-by-case
case.
basis. Right, so in this case, is it the ideal installation that we would have preferred? No, it's not. Did the window product say clear, and a homeowner saw clear and was like, okay, does it say that it's low E? Does the homeowner know that low E doesn't mean that it's clear? They might not understand that low E has a tint to it. So I think going after that, the homeowner saying, well, you signed this, it says clear, but it also says low E, I think there's a layman then versus the manufacturers who we deal with, or the window installers that come in as the professionals to kind of represent these homeowners that we're dealing with a lot, and they just kind of want to get it through, right? So they come in and say, well, look, we did what historic said, and here's the paperwork, and here, homeowner, we did it, and sign this, and
Yeah, I understand. I guess just in the prior testimony, I just found some of the statements a little confusing. And
Right,
I
yeah, it's been a
didn't-
long
and I didn't
timeline, it seems,
appreciate-
too.
And I didn't appreciate some of the statements that were made that didn't seem entirely truthful to
yeah, I
me.
think there's some kind of back and forth about when staff was contacted, who and where, and when there was pre-meetings or not pre-meetings, there was a big discussion about that too. And like Kara had just mentioned, we're a small staff. So when we have one application for windows, when we have an applicant and it's, let's say, a window company, our main point of contact comes from them because they're the applicant. There's who's going to make the repairs to the drawings. They're the ones going to make the corrections. Then sometimes we have a homeowner that chimes in, oh, but wait, you took out the stained glass that I want out of this one. And then sometimes there's an attorney that they hired also because now the attorney is getting involved because this is taking too long. And so there are times that we have an application and there's 4 or 5 people representing one property and we have 3 staff working on reviews. So like Kara said, we kind of try to be consistent that our comments are going to, in the system, first of all, so EnerGov has, it's all public, all of our comments are there. And then just keeping that line of communication that we know we're gonna get what we need back, like the drawings and the corrections and the things, because sometimes I may be able to say that to him, but then he has to go relay it to the window guy's gonna come back and say, oh wait, the homeowner said there was corrections, and then we're spending another hour with them. So I think I understand that there's a little bit kind of like, maybe some buffering of how the process happened. It's been 18 months, no? It's a long time. So I think we're kind of all refreshing our own memories from just 2 months ago. And again, for you, having small children, understanding kind of going through all of this, you're, picking up the pieces and and you said you got a state, approved contractor that you trusted because they were in that process. And that's kind of what a lot of homeowners do. And then we're stuck dealing with that contractor because we understand that that's their representative.
In your experience, have you had a lot of circumstances where there are absolutely false statements made in the permit by window installers or whoever?
Very consistently, almost weekly. I would say within our applications. And maybe, Kara, you do more administrative plan review than I do, but
Excuse me,
it's something that
this
I've
is really
seen.
about a permit violation.
Right, it's a question
So,
that
let's cut the extraneous stuff out of here. Let's focus on what the issue is, please. It's a permit violation. We don't need, I think it's been explained perfectly clear. This is a violation of the permit. There was a legal permit that was taken, as Ms. Janae has said, and the question is will the contractor live up to his agreement and follow the permit? That's the question. It's not whether the homeowner, has 4 children or anything. This is a very simple violation, okay? And I think that's what Ms. Danae is trying to say. Please stay on tack.
Are we done?
I'll have questions at a later point. Thank you.
Okay. Other board members?
I have a comment. If I were the preservation officer, this would never have come to the board.
Thank you.
I would have just signed off on the inspection. I would have said something to the owner. I would have reamed the company out. But the situation that he is in is not fair. And particularly since we're now finding out that all of the impact windows that were put in there are consistent to each other. They all are tinted in some way. We need guidelines. When this is all over, I'm going to make a motion that this area, this village, needs to have guidelines. And if there were guidelines in place and this happened, then I would be absolutely in favor of denying this. But I just think it's wrong for us.
Through the chair?
This thing.
Okay. Kelly?
If there were guidelines, they weren't followed anyway. There's 3 different documents that clearly state that this is not approved, it's not appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And even if there were guidelines for this district, the windows were ordered. Even before the comments were made. So I don't see how having guidelines would have changed this outcome.
It's having the information, I think, available to property owners and to the public, and sometimes it fully gets ignored and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it's helpful to have that link on our website and something that staff can refer to.
Through the chair, we don't have guidelines, so if we can stick to the case in front of us, that would be great, and then we could talk about other stuff later. If you don't, because it doesn't sound like we're getting answers, we're just asking questions.
That's right.
I don't know if you want to move to public, or you want to come back, or...
I want to make sure that that the board has adequate time to question this. Ms. Everett?
I think so.
Make a comment, but it's you just rejected it because as I've said before, I know this village very well, and every house is a different color. We have 7 villages that make us so they're just so important to this city, And I just have always felt that the French Normandy Village just doesn't look like the other ones. You know, it's, and as you round the bend, those are much newer. Those were built, what, in the 80s or something. But the inconsistencies of these properties is very apparent, and I'm sorry that there wasn't a guideline for everybody there. These are the windows. This is the color paint.
Okay,
No,
We
we're
have
going to
public
talk.
comment, we have a lot to do.
yeah. Is there any other board member that wishes to ask a question at this time? If not, we'll open it up to the public. Okay, all right. Is there any person here that wishes to speak? All right, please come up, right, and you've been sworn in? Please state, over here, please state your name and address.
My name is Nancy O'Loughlin. I live at 401 Vizcaya Avenue. I'm Harris and Camilla's neighbor. I've dealt with Miss Spain before, and I've dealt with Cara before because I put my windows in 2013. And in your point, Michelle, about fairness, if you want to be fair about all this, then we have to go down to the fact that when I got my windows done in 2013, I had to come in front of the board myself because my contractor could not do it. If I had known, I would have brought you the file. And you could see how many times they have been in front of the board. So nothing has changed from 2013 to 2025. I don't know how to put in impact windows. And I can tell you another thing, that as a senior citizen and someone on a fixed income, if I could have a higher efficiency, it might make my electric bill go down more, I would have done it. You know, and like Donna said, I was unaware of any of these things. If I could get a car that's going to give me higher gas mileage, I'm going to buy it. And that's really what we're trying to do. And to what Marlon's point is, any day of the week, you can drive down Vizcaya, Alessio, and you're going to find camera crews because everyone loves the charm of the village. They love that I have a purple door, that Tay across the street from me has a red door, that Dolly, who just passed away, you know, had planters in front of her house, that Sally Jude has copper windows, that Sally Jude has solar panels on her house. I mean, she has a pool. Nobody else has a pool. So there is no consistency in that village. But what there is there are people that love their homes, that take care of their homes, that want to have a future here in the Gables, and that beautify that, and that we have the most characteristic, beautiful villages of all the villages.
Thank you. Is there any other person that wishes to speak in favor of or opposition to this matter? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public portion of this and come back to the board. Board?
Mr. Chair, would have a comment or a question?
Mr. Garcia-Pons.
For the board, one of the things that unfortunately makes it difficult for the homeowner is the process of getting here. But the best thing about this process is the applicant submits an application, staff reviews, decides to either approve it or move it toward the board with a recommendation. It is not staff's job to decide what to do with this case. It is the board's job to decide what to do with this case. And there are 8, 9 of us here with different backgrounds and different expertise and different understanding of things. So it is incumbent on each of us to take a look at this on a case-by-case basis of this specific project with our point of view and give our opinion. So any sort of thought as to it must be done this way, then we don't need a board. But we have a board for specifically cases that staff has decided need our attention. So I'm glad that we're able to give the attention. Unfortunately, better once than 3 times, but hopefully today will be the day. I've spoken at the other 2 times, but I want to put it on the record for this one since it is de novo. I think everyone clearly understands this was a violation. I think everyone clearly understands that the procedure and the application process and all the things that happen on paper were not done incredibly well. What I think we have now, because it is an after-the-fact request, is we have a building with windows in it in real life. So now it is before the board to decide what do we do with the building with windows in real life. So we can go back to paper, or we can look at what we have. My point, I think, is and I think the historic preservation officer mentioned, the difference between low E and clear is not clear to many people, and it's difficult. And I can't wait to have the debate on this dais so that we can all have it. But in this particular case, the fact that the applicant has changed the Muntin pattern, which is the most clear and obvious thing that you will notice as far as the design, to something that is possibly a bit more has a bit of variety to it as to how much reflectivity, 10, 20, 90%. I studied this and I can't tell you the difference between 60 and 70. I would have to do some more work on it. But I think if we can, for this particular project, because there is no other information like design guidelines, which would be unbelievably great, that we have a case where we have a set of windows that if in this exact specific location with this exact specific neighbors at this exact specific time, how would we like to treat this application? And I just want to remind my board members to please think of it in terms of that. And as is probably obvious, I commend the homeowner for making the changes to the window, Muntin pattern, and I understand that clear is not low E and low E is not clear, but how much of a difference does that make? I think that's up for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia-Pons. Other members of the board, Mr. Silva.
I just have, I sort of agree with Mr. Garcia-Pons. I have four kind of points to go over. We did talk about this at the previous two meetings, so I'm going to be brief. Number one, I do think there was an egregious violation by the contractor. I think that's very clear. He ordered the windows before he had the permit, and even after he had the permit, he proceeded to install them knowing that they were incorrect. So that's a problem. In terms of the general request by staff to have clear windows, if you would do me a favor and pull up that image that you took, Kara, now in August, just so we all understand the reflectivity issue, right?
Can you put the PowerPoint back up, please?
So in general, if this was, it is staff's policy to request no low E and no reflectivity, and that image shows very clearly why, once it comes up.
Can you please put the PowerPoint back up on the screen? It happened last time.
Yeah, I've got a, so in that image, when it comes up, you'll see that very clearly the house on the right, which is the one we're talking about, is very, very reflective. The house on the left is clear glass, right? It's an older window. The Muntin pattern's wrong, the windows are wrong, but the glass itself just feels more appropriate to the house, right? I think that is why staff asked for these things, right? It's very clear to me. In terms of can you get an efficiency in other ways, you can, right? There's insulated glass, there's other coatings that are less reflective, so that you can have your cake and eat it too, right? You can have the clear glass and have another mode of energy efficiency. And my fourth point is dealing with this specific request in this specific historic district. We are here now understanding that this thing was done incorrectly. We are here now as an after-the-fact request. The rest of the houses on this block are all tinted. They all have low E coating. They all have tint of some sort. So looking at this thing as a district is the one thing that sways me towards approval of this after the fact. Understanding that this is, again, a very specific case in a specific district where kind of all the windows are cycling together, right? So then when they cycle out, the expectation is that they'll be low E, understanding now how that affects the character of the building. So those are my 4 points. I guess we never got the image up there, but I think we all remember it when we saw it.
Is that accurate, that all the other ones, I thought it was just a tinting but not a low E? Because I didn't see the high reflectivity in all of those other windows, the bronze ones.
I'd have to go back and check. I know that there were some, the last set that was installed was probably like 5 or 6 years ago, and as I mentioned at a previous meeting, they were allowed to be installed because the previous half of the house had been done in like 2013 when we had specified clear, and they had installed something else, and it was approved. So there are some that are reflective in the district as well.
Ms. Everett?
Just one question. Does the city as a whole have approved window vendors and unapproved? I mean, Kara, does the city have lists that people pick from?
I think we should have a list of unapproved vendors.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if this is.
The problem with having something like that is that it changes, right? Because maybe one installation is great, and then the next installation is terrible. And so we tried that in City of New Orleans for replacement of wood windows, and it was a disaster because one product worked one time, and then the next contractor would put it in, and it was installed incorrectly, but it's on your list. And then they'd come to our board and say, but it's on your list. So it's really just a fine line we do not want to
Show us what you're looking at.
Sure. So that's, the image on the left is the one I was referring to. So the windows to the right, you can see they're very reflective, kind of a greenish tint. The ones to the left that are kind of almost off the frame is clear glass, right? So they just feel more appropriate.
But
all the way on the left.
Yeah. Are the ones to the right, are those Nancy's? Or are those the other?
That's the subject property.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
Excuse me,
No,
excuse me,
you may not
please.
speak from the galley. You must have to, the public is closed. I'm sorry. Thank you.
So the windows on the left aren't impact, just, to make
Yeah.
it clear.
Yeah, I'm just speaking about the glass itself.
The crux of the question, ladies and gentlemen, is whether or not this is a violation of a permit. Okay, this is not about the glass. This is not about, 4 children, and this is not about whether the city or not. It is very clear, in the documentation that the permit was violated and that the contractor violated this. And the problem that this board has is that this happens numerous times over and over again, and it puts the property owner in a terrible position. In other words, the property owner is here to defend someone who has violated the permit, someone who has broken the contract with him and them, and is on the point of costing them a tremendous amount of money. That is the issue. There is no other issue here. There is no other issue here but that.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay? No, it is not.
Disagree with you.
Mr. Through the chair, if I may ask the city attorney, is that correct? Because that's not how I understand this.
No, and Mr. Chair, just to clarify, the item before you today is a certificate of appropriateness for this property to install windows with low EV glass. Initially, it had also been for a different Muttons pattern, but the Muttons have been now matched to the appropriate permit. So the question before you today, and I understand there's a background and there's questions about permit violations, but this is not the code enforcement board. So today, what's before you today is whether or not the low E is appropriate on this home as installed. Contrary to the permit that was issued and the approval that was initially given by staff, whether or not this board feels it's appropriate to give a certificate of appropriateness for this low E glass with this current Mutton pattern. That's my understanding of the application that's before you today. Just the color of glass as a certificate of appropriateness.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Dene.
Can I make a comment on that? So I want to follow up on some of Mr. Silva's comments because I think they were well stated. And first of all, I want it on the record that this is not about energy efficiency. Historic preservation and windows can be absolutely in line with energy efficiency. So there are windows that can be constructed that will be energy efficient. So that shouldn't be a consideration. So I'm thinking about is something like art. So perhaps one person might think the Muttons make it look acceptable, but I really feel, to me, the main issue is the reflectivity. And to me, the reflectivity is really inappropriate on a building of this age. And I worry something that Mr. Silva said before, just because a mistake was made in one sense doesn't mean moving forward we should repeat that mistake. And I really feel that to continue with historic integrity, of this building, that you have to start somewhere. And under these circumstances and with the background, I just feel it would be more appropriate to have the clear glass.
Board members, is there any further discussion on this? Anybody want to further opine? Okay, if not, we'll close the discussion. I'd like to move for a motion. Ms. Dene, would you like to make a motion?
I can try. Okay, let me see. I'm sorry. I apologize. I have to find my notes. Okay. Yes, I would like to make a motion based upon the applicable ordinances, the requirements of Section 8-106, and the fact that we do have some detailed facts in the staff report, which I believe support my motion. I'm making a motion to deny the after-the-fact design approval for the installation of impact-resistant windows and doors on the property located at 405 Vizcaya Avenue, the French Village of Coral Gables, and to deny the issuance of a special certificate of appropriateness based upon the unique facts in this case and the high reflectivity of the windows, which I believe does destroy the historic integrity of the property.
We have a motion. To have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, we have a second by Ms. Shield. All right, we have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Alvarez,
No.
Mr. Garcia Pons,
No.
Ms. Spain,
No.
Ms. Ebert, okay. Ms. Dene,
Yes.
Ms. Shield,
Yes.
Mr. Silva,
No.
Mr. Maxwell.
Yes, motion passes 3-4.
Motion fails.
Excuse me, Mr. Maxwell.
Motion fails.
Motion fails. I'm
Excuse
sorry.
me, Mr. Yeah.
There we go.
Motion fails 3-5. Is there another motion that someone would like to make?
I'm happy to make the motion. A motion to approve the after-the-fact design approval for the installation of impact-resistant windows and doors on the property located at 405 Vizcaya Avenue, and approve the issuance of the special certificate of appropriateness.
We have a
I'll
motion
second.
by Mr. Garcia Pons. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Ms. Ebert. Would call the roll, please?
Okay. Ms. Shield,
No.
Ms. Alvarez,
Yes.
Ms. Dene,
Yes.
No.
Ms. Spain,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia Pons,
Yes.
Ms. Ebert,
Yes.
Mr. Silva,
Yes.
and Mr. Maxwell.
No.
5-3.
Motion passes. All right, next item.
Mr. Maxwell, if I could, Mr. Chair, if I could interrupt for a moment. We're having some technical issues with Zoom. Do you mind if we take a brief recess so that we could get IT staff in here to make sure that we have the Zoom appropriate for the next two items where we have members who will be speaking on the Zoom? Thank you very much. We'll take a brief recess.
Your discussion.
No, I forgot.
During the research, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Carolina Besser, the Assistant City Manager. Historic is under my repertoire, so now I wanted to make sure I get a feel, get to meet the board, get a understanding of the board's position. So I just want to introduce myself and I apologize. I guess my first meeting, there's no technical difficulties. So, but I want to say thank you for your service for participating in the board, it's an essential board. Marlon knows I'm very passionate about historic. I managed the Venetian pool for a decade before I moved up in different positions with the city. So just thank you for your service and thank you for
Thank you for coming, yes.
I saw that the last two meetings to catch up on these items, to be more educated on what was
nice.
before you today, but I appreciate everything you guys do, so.
Thank
Wanted
you.
to take the moment.
Recording stopped.
I just set the speakers to, yeah, but right now, yeah, it's just me projecting my own voice. I can zoom on my phone, speak from there. I know. Yeah, but they have to, I know. I was like, well, I'm going to speak and then see what picks up on there. Because right now I have the speakers. Right now, the speakers are right now set to. The speakers are currently set to the HD audio driver for display. No, no. Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Can you hear? Test 1 2. Test 1 2. No, I think it's just me. Wendy's. Yeah. All right, I'll unmute you. Let me try that. I'm gonna unmute you, Alex. All right. All right. Alex, you're
Audio
unmuted.
check 2, 3, 4. Audio check 5, 6, 7. Audio check 3, 4, 5. Audio check 4, 5, 6.
No, I don't hear the money. It's not that loud.
Audio check 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, I'm trying to play through the speakers. The only other way I can do this is changing the audio to the. Test 1 2.
Test 3,
Test.
4, 5, 6.
All right, it's coming in.
Audio check 3, 4, 5. I'm coming into the room. What'd you do? How'd you do it? Audio check 6, 7, 8.
See if I can raise.
Audio check. Audio check.
I'm literally raising as high as I can.
We stopped recording.
Come on, go up. I'm literally trying to raise as high as I can. Oh wait, there we go. There we go. Now I can adjust me. There we go. Try. Speak, Alex.
Audio check 2, 3, 4.
Here. Yeah. Just to. Yeah, I have to increase the volume.
Audio check 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, this is. Yeah, just like. All right, erase. Yeah. Yeah, that's.
Audio check 2, 3, 4.
There is no spotlight option.
But he's done, it's been great to have him back because, like I said, Benicia would have proposed for probably another year if it weren't for him coming on board and working.
My son keeps asking me because he got married there, and, about 2 years ago.
Earlier in the year.
So he got married there, and he now has a daughter that's wants to bring him down and swim in the.
Yeah, he would have made, he would have done the same. Peggy would have. If Peggy was here, this would have tied.
Hello?
It says you violated the contract, I can't get this, you're gonna owe me the price of the windows and the $10,000. Of course they were. I know they were.
So they knew that they were probably going to split the cost, so I didn't have as strong a case.
Mr. Chair?
You know.
But, you try. You don't want to be mean. I don't want to be the mean lady. Mr. Maxwell, I think they're ready.
Are we ready? Let's get this show on the road.
Oh, okay, all right. How are you, sir?
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
How's everything?
Quite well. All right, guys. I understand we have the video ready. The Zoom link is hooked up. Okay, let me introduce the next item here, and we'll move this. Okay, we have a local historical designation, case file LHD 2025-005. Consideration of the local historic designation of the property at 1005 South Alhambra Circle, legally described as lots 56, 57 on the west 25 feet of lot 55, block 241, Coral Gables Riviera, section part 12, plat book 28, page 35, public records, Miami-Dade County. Presentation?
Thank you. Just to clarify, this item is not a presentation by historic staff. This was an appeal of a historic significance determination that was issued in April. The applicant appealed the decision and submitted a designation report for the property, so this is not a presentation from us.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I would like
Coralia, please state your name
Yes.
for the record.
My name is Carelia Martinez Carbonell, and I am here representing the I'm president of the Historic Preservation Association of Coral Gables. And yes, this is an appeal of a determination letter that was tendered by staff. And first, I'd like to read just a brief quote from our dear Dolly. she says, "We are ready to do all we can to help save places that are part of our community and sense of place and belonging. We must speak up for those silent structures that we treasure. We do this by attending government meetings, writing letters and emails to legislators at the local, state, and national level, and making phone calls. We do this by keeping our eyes and ears open to possible threats to historic structures and speaking up as necessary. We do this by helping research and document buildings. We do this by caring enough to take action." And that's what we're here to do. And just for the record, I will quantify our organization. The Historic Preservation Association was established in 1991. The group's mission is to promote the importance of historic resources and their preservation. The Historic Association of Coral Gables started out as a historic homeowners association of Coral Gables and routinely provided owners of local historic houses with a resource list of providers. In 2008, the group embarked on a new direction and embraced a new mission, prompting a name change: the Historic Preservation Association of Coral Gables. In over 3 decades, HPACG has achieved outstanding success in historic preservation efforts. In carrying out its mission, HPACG has effectively communicated the value of historic preservation to its membership. Through its promotional activities, HPACG has exhibited leadership in issues of importance to historic preservation and has established itself as one of the leaders in statewide preservation advocacy. I will now read into the record the support letter of Dr. David McKinney. You all have that, I know that, but just for the record. Sorry. I have too many things here. Here it is. Okay. So regarding 1005 South Alhambra Circle, Coral Gables, Florida, this is from Dr. David McKinney, architectural historian. And, you know, in his estimation, the residence is an example of the colonial revival. And as reported in the Miami Herald and outlined in the report, this style was prevalent in South Florida and represented a specific mindset that informed residential construction. In addition, the architect's treatment of classical grammar shows the influence of mid-century modern that minimized ornamentation and emphasized proportions. These characteristics make the residence representative of mid-century residential architecture in South Florida. You also have his CV, and I'm sure you probably all have reviewed that. At this time, what I'd like to do is introduce by Zoom, Dr. Brett Gillis. Is he on? He will be the one going through the report. Obviously, it's not going to be the whole report. He's going to just make sure that you all have, you know, the parts that we'd like you to emphasize. And again, hopefully you've read all this material beforehand.
IT, if you could please assist in getting Mr. Gillis on the screen so he can be sworn in and provide his testimony to the board. Thank you.
Oh.
who to project?
I'm not sure. I believe it's Mr. Gillis. Ms. Carbonell, perhaps you can verify who the person is who needs to be.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we may need to adjust the volume a little bit, but we can hear you.
Okay, it's not allowing me to start my video. It's saying you cannot start your video because the host has disabled it.
One moment, we'll make sure we give you access to show your video.
That's par for the course.
Mr. Gillis, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Will you please raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so the presentation is not showing on my screen here. I'm not sure why that's happening, but do you have the PDF up of the local historic designation report?
It's not showing.
We have it, but it's not on the screen.
If we could please put up the presentation again, we could take off Mr. Gillis.
Okay, I'll start while you work on that. So this is the local historic designation report for 1005 South Alhambra Circle in Coral Gables. The property original permit number is 11852, originally permitted in 1953. The architect was Tyrus Tripp and the builder was Robert Scarborough. I'll go ahead and read the summary statement of significance and then just go over some of the key points in the report. And then, of course, if anybody has any questions, please let me know at the end. But I'll just summarize so we're not here all night. Developed as a primarily Old Spanish and Mediterranean-inspired city in the 1920s, the vast majority of the early buildings in Coral Gables were designed in these styles. The devastating composite of the Great Hurricane of 1926, the stock market crash of 29, and the Great Depression brought an end to the great Florida land boom of the 1920s, which quashed many of founder George Merrick's dreams, especially for the Riviera section where this property is located, which he acquired relatively late in the boom. And that was to connect the landlocked areas of early development in the North Gables to the sea via a complex network of canals and waterways. Construction virtually came to a halt by 1931, with almost no houses being constructed. The New Deal did bring about a slight uptick in the construction in the late 1930s and early 1940s, but this was curtailed by America's entry into World War II in 1941. And by 42, building efforts were diverted almost entirely to that war effort, once again resulting in almost no new houses being constructed. Then in 1945, with the post-war optimism, that created a growing economy and a robust building boom into the 1960s, which surpassed even the original Great Florida land boom of the 1920s in terms of construction. Changing sensibilities resulted in a departure from the predominantly Mediterranean theme of the city, and most of the grand residences that were constructed after the war on prominent arteries and waterways were designed in the colonial revival and neoclassical styles. So that was a significant departure from the early development of the city. This rekindled the charming nostalgia of both America and Coral Gables' earliest structures, and these stately residences that were constructed after the war reflected the improving economy and upwardly mobile lifestyle. The single-family residence at 1005 South Alhambra, lovingly dubbed Villa Ionia for its iconic Ionic-inspired entrance, was designed by architect Tyrus Tripp and built in the neoclassical style in the 1950s. It's one of the few visual reminders in the Riviera section of the type of elaborate residences that were planned but never realized by founder George Merrick in the Mediterranean style. But later, after the war, of course, these residences did come about just in the prevailing architectural trends of that era, in the neoclassical and colonial revival period. Architect Tyrus Tripp's detailed plans for the residence clearly specify the use of concrete beams and columns for the porch, a white cement shingle tile roofing, widely overhanging eaves, and for lime treatment of the brick L and pilasters. In mitigating the strong sun and diverting heavy precipitation, these specifications are subtropical adaptations of the neoclassical style for the South Florida environment that wouldn't typically be found on other neoclassical houses in the country. 1005 South Alhambra Circle is significant for its historical, cultural, and architectural contributions to the historic fabric and built environment of the city, and as part of the quaint collection of resources that captures the spirit of the era in which it was constructed, this residence portrays our history and sense of place over time. It is a valuable, non-renewable historic and environmental resource. Moving on to page 3, as I believe it was mentioned earlier in the meeting, Coral Gables is a certified local government. As part of that, when we talk about the environment, it includes the natural and built environments. It's clearly stated in our material for the city of Coral Gables that the built environment reflects the beliefs, values, and creative expressions and technical capacity at a place in time and history. So historic preservation seeks to conserve the structures and spaces that tell the community's story over time. As a certified local government, we are required to review the criteria and associate the preservation standards across the board, not just for one time period. That's why, as part of our Register of Historic Places, we have not only the old Spanish and Mediterranean buildings, but we also have many other styles: Art Deco, modern structures, colonial revival, neoclassical, minimal traditional, and so on. Moving on to page 4, we have the location map of the property with a pin at the subject property location and the aerial photo of the property from the 2019 real estate listing. Page 5 shows the progression of the map of Coral Gables over time, starting with 1921 when the first maps were being developed, and it shows where the Riviera section was added much later in the boom, close to the hurricane in 1926. Moving on to pages 6 and 7, that's basically the background information for the city of Coral Gables. I will just read the last paragraph of that. The post-war prosperity following triumph and war in 1945 created extreme optimism in almost everything, including a booming economy and an unprecedented building boom that reigned through the 1960s. So by the 1960s, most of the Riviera section was built out. There are a few grand and elaborate residences that were built primarily in the colonial revival and neoclassical styles on prominent streets and waterways, but ultimately the majority of the homes in the Riviera section were of the mass-produced ranch typology. And of course, not all of the originally built homes are still extant today. Moving on to page 8 is the ownership history. This residence was originally commissioned in 1953 by Mr. and Mrs. John C. Williams, and it has changed hands several times over the years. Moving on to page 9 is the criteria for designation in the city of Coral Gables. Property must meet at least one of the criteria. This property meets 4 of them. Historical cultural significance, criterion number 4, exemplifies the historical, cultural, political, economic, or social trends of the community. Architectural significance, criteria 1 and 2, that portrays the environment in an era of history characterized by one or more distinctive architectural styles and embodies those distinguishing characteristics of an architectural style, period, or method of construction. Also, architectural significance criterion 4 contains elements of design, detail, materials, or craftsmanship of outstanding quality or which represent a significant innovation or adaptation of the South Florida environment. Moving on to page 10 is basically a review of the architectural, historical, and cultural significance, and then some photos. Follow on page 11, we have George Washington's Mount Vernon, which was constructed in pine wood, but it was carved and rusticated to look like stone. Then on an image of a $2 bill is shown with Thomas Jefferson, and on verso, the Monticello. some other examples, period examples, the White House, of course, and the Grand Hotel, the largest porch in the world. Bringing it back to home to Coral Gables, page 13, we have the oldest house in Coral Gables, featuring a neoclassical inspired front porch. We can note that the odd number of posts on the front porch, there's 5, which would be atypical for a high style example like we're dealing with the 1005 South Alhambra Circle, which is, just giving this as some background information. Of course, the Mod Black cottage also has references in its design to the colonial revival, but it was originally a stable, so I didn't include that here since we're looking primarily at single family homes. And of course, on page 14, Coral Gables House, or now known as the Merrick House. This was a design largely attributed to Althea Fink Merrick, and of course, the earliest and finest home in the backwoods of Miami at the time. Moving on to page 15 is some examples of the time period where this house was built. This one is from 1939, talking about a modern adaptation of colonial architecture, and also the influences of the colonial revival period on fashion and design across the board at the time. In this example, right in the center of the photo, we have an example of a lady's dress. At the bottom, there's a clipping from the Miami Herald referencing golf and tying that into colonial revival period. Moving on to page 16, we have some more examples of the Miami area showing the trend of the period towards the colonial revival away from the Mediterranean style of architecture. At the bottom is the Florida governor's home, which received much praise and press, obviously. Page 17, this is from my scrapbook. It's a postcard from the period from the 1940s of 6915 Granada Boulevard. So that's just a few blocks away from this property during the 1920s. Of course, the majority of the postcards were featuring colonial revival and Spanish style architecture and design. So this is a huge departure where the photographs and postcards that were being sent around the world at that time featured colonial revival and neoclassical. Moving to page 18, neoclassical is still referenced in popular culture with Estee Lauder in terms of her design inspiration. And at the bottom of page 18 is Alistair Cook's book titled America, writing about the culture of America. One of the few examples of a house that he depicts in that book is of a neoclassical. Page 19 goes over the neoclassical style, which ran from circa 1895 to 1955, and refers to the entire rebirth of the interest in early English and Dutch houses on the Atlantic seaboard. From there, it spread throughout the country. In the neoclassical style, there are the 5 classical orders: the Doric, Ionic, Corinthian, Tuscan, and Composite. And today's example features the Ionic inspiration. Page 20 continues that, again, just summarizing here. Page 21 is a summary of the time periods with the neoclassical style and how they were ultimately executed in Coral Gables. Of course, during the 1920s, there were a few examples, particularly with the Pioneer Village on Santa Maria Street. We see some very high style examples of the colonial revival and neoclassical. But aside from that, it wasn't until the late 30s and then after the war where these type of designs really began to predominate in the city. Moving to page 22 is the subject property photography. I think page 22 probably shows the best 2 photos that we have available to look at the character defining features. So I could briefly go over those. The hallmark of the style, of course, is the dominant and imposing symmetrical 2-story entry porch as the main bay and focal point. And then we have bays or wings coming off of that to the sides, giving the impression of colonial L's. So if you've been to colonial Williamsburg or Boston or many of these places where the properties were built over time, these L's were built to extend the properties. Here it's part of the initial design of it, giving that impression of the colonial feel. There's smooth stucco as the primary finish over concrete block construction, and then there are cast brick and wooden accents. A very shallow pitched hipped roof is covered in white flat shingle tiles, and has overhanging exposed eaves. The central door is from the Curtis booklet, entrance number C/1718. There are stucco panel trays beneath the first story windows, hanging lantern above the central door, has a brick porch landing. There's a divided pane window program, and the symmetry is further celebrated on the main bay with the balanced arrangement of windows in the central door. There's an inset left wing faced in limed brick adjoining an outset, remainder of that wing forming a bay. Simplified entablature banding and absence of a formal pediment above the entryway, giving the impression of a house and not of a temple. And the side entry integral garage is constructed that way as to not impair the classical tone of the primary facade. If we go through the pages, page 23, 24, more photos. On page 25, I wanted to point out one of the key elements of this property, inspired by multiple previous structures. I showed pictures earlier of the White House and of Monticello, where we have the four monolithic columns as the entryway. So this is a feature that's used throughout time. It goes back to the Temple of Athena. And on page 26, a close-up of the column shows that as it was specified and ultimately built, the columns are inspired by the Teatro di Marcello in Rome. It was not necessarily the largest because of the Colosseum, but is the best preserved open-air Roman theater in Rome. And the columns there are taken from this structure. You could go there and see them. I have photos in the report. They are basically an exact replica of that. So it's interesting to see in the 1920s how with Martin Hampton, George Fink, they took elements of the Alhambra and Giralda Tower and built it in the 1920s. With French Normandy Village, of course, we see how a streetscape from that period was replicated in Coral Gables. So now coming into the colonial revival, neoclassical period, they did some of the same things with the architects borrowing from the old world charm to include it in the modern designs. Page 27 is Tyrus Tripp, a brief biography. He was born in St. Louis and moved to Miami in 1936, so he did not participate with Phineas Pace, George Fink, Martin Hampton, Richard Keene, all these original band of architects of the 1920s, but he was very important to the later periods of Coral Gables. He's primarily known for designing elegant residences in Coral Gables, modern homes for new suburban developments in Miami area, and for several larger projects. He designed some of the early homes in Pinecrest, which now doesn't sound to be something new, but at the time he was one of the founding architects of some of the designs there. And some of his larger projects are mentioned in the report. Page 28 shows a Curtis booklet. We talked about the door earlier. It was a design, of course, picked for this type of home, not a Tudor house or a Mediterranean house. They picked a door that would match with the neoclassical design of the building. Page 29, this building possesses a high degree of historic integrity, has had very few alterations and additions. The interior is not up for designation. Page 30 talks about the incentives for property owners in Coral Gables. I hope that if this property owner does seek to do an addition, they would work with staff for the ad valorem tax benefit program, which many people have found helpful. Moving on to the appendices, I'd like to just point out, starting page 33, Appendix A is the original plans for the property. Appendix B is the designation report for 3501 Granada Boulevard, which was designated in 2003. Appendix C is just the first page for the report of 1234 Country Club Prado, which was just designated a few years ago. Other than that, the summary recommendation would just be, we ask for approval of the local historic landmark designation of the residence located 1005 South Alhambra Circle in Coral Gables based on its historical, cultural, and architectural significance. And I am available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gillis and Ms. Carbonell. Does the property owner have a presentation?
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Franco Pasta. I own the property, the subject property. I brought with me.
The microphone on?
Do I need the microphone?
Okay.
And if you can remove this this before I knock it down. Test 1, 2, test 1, 2. Okay, so as I was saying, my name is Julio Acosta, and I own the property, the subject property at 1005 Alhambra Circle, South Alhambra Circle. And I brought Mr. Rodriguez with me, and I guess he's going to speak about the architectural integrity or lack thereof of the house.
Good evening. My name is Hamed Rodriguez, architect at 275 Minorca Avenue. So I was asked by Mr. Acosta to take a look at this house and to give our opinion. I'd like to use the same presentation that they use because it has excellent pictures of the house. And I'd like to just react to that presentation. Very well put together, I must add, as far as the pictures of the house and illustrations of other historical examples. And so I have a few notes here that I put together on why I feel that this house is like a snapshot, I think, of a colonial house. And I'll go through the different points that I have. So point
Mr.
number...
Rodriguez, do we need to request the presentation to come up? Do you want it now?
Yes, I would. That would be great.
Could we please put back up the PowerPoint presentation, please?
Could you take us to page 22 of the presentation? I think that's the one he's looking for.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. A really good one would actually be page 8. We can start with page 8. It shows the center portion and it shows the one-story portion that's part of the original house. Page 8. That's further towards the front.
Let's see.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Karen. Okay, thank you. Okay, so when I look at this house, I really see a ranch home. And this is, the reason I see a ranch home is a very low slung. Ranch home is one that could be very adaptable to many different styles. Over the years, that's what's happened to ranch homes. So when I look at the proportions of this house, we have this center iconic portion with the columns. And when you look further, you'll see that what is colonial is the essence of the 4 columns and the trim around the door. Other notes here that I just spoke of, point number 2, the evidence of a low-slung one-story ranch house ending, really bookending this center portion. And you could see the amount of prominence that lower ranch portion is calling to itself in relationship to the center portion. And the same is happening on the other side, which was actually an open carport at one point that was enclosed later. So the other issue that I see with this is, it's a very shallow front porch. And all of the fine examples given in this report of colonial homes has a usable front porch. You look at the Merrick House, you look at other examples here, you look at Washington's house, it had a real usable front porch with depth to it. So this here is well, I'll get to that. That's one of my final points. So I'm looking at this as a faux front porch. The proportion of the windows are typically more vertical in nature, and in this house, they're very squat. And I was studying this, and I'm thinking that I understand why it happened, because the low-slung one-story portion is forcing the rest of the house to maintain that same squat in nature window. And then when you get to the middle portion, which is the iconic, snapshot of this style, you'll see that there's a massive gap between the second-story windows and the first-story windows. So therefore, again, another element that's not really true to a good, what we think would be a quality colonial. And again, these examples in here are very fine examples of good quality colonials that should be saved and were saved, of course. The other element, so we're talking about the front, we only have 2 items, the columns and trim around the front door. Number 4, we went over that one already. Well, number 4 is that these things feel more like a clipped-on type of style. It's just a few little elements. The shutters are not functioning shutters, and the shutters are not the size that would actually close and cover the windows because they're not functioning, which is something you would see in a true historic home that should be saved. Proportions of fenestrations are squat, talked about that. Vertical fenestrations, truly historic, notice vertical fenestrations. That would be something that I'd be looking for on this, that there'd be larger windows, taller, the sills be closer to the floor levels. Okay, number 8. We went over that. Number 9. So the other thing that comes to mind here too is also we would expect to see a bit more ornamentation or actual functional ornamentation, such as a couple of fireplaces bookending the middle piece, transitioning down to these wings. These wings should have been taller, as if it were a historic home that was added onto over time. But this is clearly an original house designed this way, and it has the feeling of almost as of a speculative home of the time that was put together in a fashion that was popular at the time to pretend to be a colonial style house. But this, we feel, is an inadequate example of a colonial style house. And let's not even talk about the rear, because that is destroyed. That's a hodgepodge. But the front is original, and it's ill proportioned. And we feel that the original report written was a fair report, and we would hope that you would vote in the same manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Does anyone on the board have any questions for staff or the property owner or the appellant, I guess? Or do you have something else to say?
Yes, may I say more?
Sure.
Okay. So I just want to say, when I first saw this home and I purchased a home, I fell in love with the lot. I believe one of the letters that were sent in support was speaking about the trees, and I don't plan to touch these trees. It's a beautiful lot, but as Mr. Rodriguez just mentioned, and I'm not an architect and I don't profess to be one, but when I first saw the property, I knew it wasn't a very proportionate colonial. All the ones that I saw here, the entire top was even. I mean, as Mr. Rodriguez just mentioned, the sides of the home are very disproportionate to the middle. And that's what I noticed as a non-expert when I first saw the home. But I did fall in love with the location and the lot, meaning the trees, the size of the lot. So I thought I could do something better with it. But one of the things I do want to mention is I ask that the board keep in mind that the Historical Resource and Cultural Arts Department, Kara Kutz, if I pronounced that correctly, I hope I didn't butcher your name. Okay. They made the determination that it was non-historic. And I'd like to ask her if she can maybe explain to the board. I don't know if that's proper. This is my first time at one of these hearings. I don't know if it is proper, but maybe explain to the board why it isn't historic.
If you don't ask, I will. So
I don't know if that's, I don't even know.
it's okay.
if
I'll ask on your behalf. If you could talk about the decision to not designate.
So our determination, so what's before you is not for us to defend our position as to why we did not found it was significant. Their role is to sell on you that it is designatable, it meets the criteria. If you want something more specific, we're happy to give you something more specific.
Perhaps is it best if we ask the appellant?
Yes, feel free.
Questions?
I mean, that's
not to put you on the spot.
I have more, but
Before we appealed, the first question we asked before we appealed is, why wasn't this historically designated? And that was the answer. They wouldn't answer. And we went ahead and we believe through our research that the home, sir, is a really great example, and it's actually a beautiful property, and the trees are beautiful as well. So the question is valid. We asked it before we even embarked on this journey because we wanted to know, but we didn't get an answer, and that was why we went ahead. And I believe Dr. Gillis wants to say one thing about one of the the architectural features.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Gillis.
Dr. Gillis?
While we get him back on, you had some other comments?
I do. I have more to say. I'm sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so there was, Mr. Rodriguez also spoke about the fireplaces or the lack of fireplaces. The home does not have one fireplace. It actually has one in the interior. It's not a working fireplace. It's a fake fireplace, which goes to everything that Mr. Rodriguez spoke about the home. It's a spec home, and it was trying to imitate, I guess, a colonial. When I'm looking at their report, one of the things I noticed is that they were speaking about the Greek architecture and the columns, and then they're also saying this is a colonial home. I'm confused. Again, I'm not an architect. I don't know. As a matter of fact, Mr. Rodriguez is an architect, and he spoke, but the folks that put this report together, and I believe the report that has been filed, the local historic landmark designation report, I believe was drafted by Dr. Brett Gillis, and my understanding is it was also done in conjunction with David McKinney. So I just want to speak about their educational background and their experience and their qualifications in being able to speak about the architectural and whether it's historic or not. And I'm looking at the resume provided, and I guess this was done by Dr. Carbonell, and I know she spoke about a letter that was provided by Dr. Gillis. Dr. Gillis is providing a letter supporting and his own report. So again, the report was done by Dr. Gillis and I guess Mr. McKinney. And I'm looking at Dr. Gillis's, I guess his bio. It's a paragraph that was provided to the board. And he holds a doctorate in health sciences and a certificate in intercultural communications. He has no architectural background or experience. And I'm looking at Dr. McKinney's resume, and he has, I guess, a undergrad degree in architectural history from 1992. Architectural history, I guess it was an undergrad degree, and then he got his doctorate degree in architectural history. He has no work experience. He has never worked as an architect. He is not an architect. As a matter of fact, by looking at his bio, you could see that all of his experience is with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. And that's dating back to 2009, if I'm reading this correctly. I didn't see anything indicating that he has any experience or education or qualification to give any opinion with regards to architecture, and neither does Dr. Gillis. And Dr. Carbonell, who is spearheading this, her degree is in fundraising, not in architecture. Okay.
Thank you. Does that conclude your remarks?
I'm sorry, one second. I could be wrong. It says independent. Your professional history is okay. It says, I'm sorry, and I'm just reading from your resume, and it says your education. You got a certificate in fundraising. You're a certified fundraising professional, and you got that from Nova Southeastern University. Is that correct?
Ms.
Sir,
Carbonell?
I don't think this is very relevant.
Okay,
She was
I'm
not
just
one of the authors of the report, and she was just introducing the report and the speakers.
Okay, understood. I just want to make sure that the board is aware that the appellant and nobody in support of the appellant's position has any architectural background or experience. That's all. Thank you. Thank you.
I think Mr. Gillis had one more point to make. Have we been able to get him?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, a few points of rebuttal on that, please. So going back to my experience, I can tell you for the past over 10 years, I have either attended, participated, or been a member of this Historic Preservation Board. So I think I would know something about what properties are designatable and which aren't. Furthermore, in the report, I clearly included in Appendix B, the local historic designation report for 3501 Granada Boulevard, which is a less elaborate example than this. So I think it's very difficult for this board in good faith to turn this one down whenever you look at the criteria. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4 Country Club Prado is another example. When we look at the criteria, the property owner has not done anything to refute the criteria. We did not list the criterion that says that this is an outstanding work of a prominent designer or builder. This is exactly what they said it is. It's an example, it's a snapshot of that period of Coral Gables history where this type of architecture was being built. In terms of portrays the environment and era history of, okay, I'm getting aggravated here. Portrays the environment in an era of history characterized by one or more distinctive architectural styles. This is not a ranch-style house. It's not a one-story home to begin with, which a ranch would be. It doesn't have the garage facing the street like most of the ranches do unless they're on a corner. So this is all of the character-defining features that have been listed in the report. A fireplace was not one of them. Some colonial and neoclassical homes can have that. They don't all have that. It was not listed in the report as being one of the features. Many of the design elements that we did go over pertain to that criterion architectural significance number 4, that it contains elements of design, detail, materials, or craftsmanship, which represent adaptation to the South Florida environment. As time went on, these architects began to realize that some features of the period examples were not ideal for Coral Gables built environment, such as the widely overhanging eaves. You're not going to find that in many period colonials, but you will find it in this example. Going back to the earlier examples, Mount Vernon, Monticello, those, of course, are excellent period examples. That we're not saying this is a period colonial. We're saying this is a neoclassical example of architecture in Coral Gables from a specific period in time. They talked about David McKinney's background. I mean, he's not an architect. He's an architectural historian. That's why we have a letter from him. He's an architectural historian, studied at William and Mary. This is his wheelhouse in terms of neoclassical colonial revival. I don't think that can be refuted. Another point that was made, it's disproportionate. That's part of how the prominent entrance receives its grandeur, is by the other wings being subordinate to that. That's listed in the character defining features. The fact that it's a spec home or not a spec home, this was not commissioned by a construction company. Doesn't really matter even if it was. It was commissioned by a couple that built it as a home. And even if it were a spec house, model homes are designated all the time. I mean, many of the homes on Obispo Avenue were spec homes. Country Club Prado, this is something that was done throughout history and still being done today. So that's not something we would eliminate from being designated or not designated. Model homes, not model homes, they're both designated all the time. So again, I would conclude there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gillis.
Yeah, and just to finalize, number one, Dr. Gillis is highly qualified. He served on your board, and that gives him a certain status and qualification. Also, it's not the first report that has been submitted and has been approved. Also, about fireplaces, we're not even dealing with the inside, so I don't think that's even an issue. And for this being a ranch home, I really, it's the first time I've heard that a ranch home is, looks like a neoclassical and has those features. So, again, and Dr. McKinney, you see his CV, it's a very extensive, experienced historian. And we were happy to have him collaborate with this report. As far as my qualifications, I have a doctor in public administration with a concentration not for profit management, and I have been leading the Historic Preservation Association for over a decade, and I am very involved with the city and its architecture and historical and cultural heritage. So I thank you for your time, and you know, I thank the homeowners, or the homeowner. Actually, we met about a month ago. Excuse me, at your property, and we had a nice conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Carbonell. One more, and yeah.
Listen, I think you're doing what you're doing long enough, you get experience, you read enough, you learn. And so let's leave it there. Again, I ask you to really look at this. This is a ranch home. It's got two elements, the columns and the door trim. The only reason I mentioned chimney is like other things that would add to this: chimneys, dormers, anything else to give it, especially proportion, which is something we can't fix. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Is there anyone else on Zoom or here who wishes to speak for or against this item?
I understand we had letters
Yes,
that were submitted. Can you please
They've been
mention their
distributed.
names?
They've been distributed to the board.
Well, it would be nice if you mentioned, I believe that happens.
They do not need to be read into the record, neither do their names, and they're not sworn testimony. So they can be considered by the board, but they're not sworn testimony.
Okay.
Thank you.
There was one additional that was received at 3 o'clock this afternoon that was not forwarded to you all from Maribel B. Ammon on Bird Road. It will be added to the record.
Thank you, Ms. Counts. All right, thank you. So if there's no one else to speak from the public, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to open it to questions and discussion from the board. Ms. Ebert?
I'm new to this board, so just a little question about the history. So this did not come here before, correct? It went to you for whether or not, for a demolition?
It came to us for a historic significance determination.
Right.
Which is a preliminary step to.
Usually for demolition, okay. So, and that's how we've landed here.
Correct. There's an appeal period. After we issue the letter, they are posted online. And there's an appeal period of 10 days in which someone can appeal that decision of staff.
One additional, my children lived at 924 South Alhambra. So another house on South Alhambra, so I know the neighborhood very well. And I walked over the other morning, and you know, I think that I'm the only member of this board that lives east of the highway. And I'm not sure where you live, but anyway.
Northview.
And we have 4 of the 7 villages on our side of the highway. We have very few historic homes. I can almost count on 2 hands because I walk a lot. So this is interesting to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ebert. Mr. Garcia-Pons?
And just for Ms. Couch, I know that the letter of determination, it was the staff's opinion that this project did not rise to the level of designation. Is that safe to say, since it wasn't recommended for designation?
Correct. Yes.
So that's simple. Okay, I don't need the specifics. Okay, thank you. And then one more question for staff, and maybe the city attorney will address, and it has to do with what I think substantial competent evidence. And I really commend the city staff for the incredible reports that they provide us day in and day out for these things. This is new. It's different than the ones that we have been receiving, thus different in many ways. So I think it's clear the staff recommendations that we get are very clearly done as far as what I believe are substantial competent evidence. I'm not sure if this is that for us to decide? Is that for staff to decide? Is that for the applicant to decide? Do they have to prove their case?
The substantial competent evidence threshold is that the decisions that you make, to the extent that they are ever challenged, have to have been made on substantial competent evidence that was presented before you in these hearings. So that is a determination you all make as to what is substantial and competent evidence. That doesn't mean there cannot be substantial competent evidence on both sides of a decision. It just has to mean that the decision you make was based on substantial competent evidence as presented to you, as determined by you. So qualifications, formats of reports, that's all for you all to consider, and the balance in your quasi-judicial role.
So that's for an individual to decide.
Correct. The
And
board
it's
as a
for-
whole, when they vote on a motion, and the motion and the second should make a determination that based on the substantial competent evidence presented to it, whether that be this report, whether it be the property owner's presentation, so the motion should refer to the substantial competent evidence on which you rely.
And the application, by the fact that it is an application, is saying that it is substantial, they're claiming to have substantial competent evidence on their side?
Substantial competent evidence is a determination for you all to
Determination.
make,
Got it.
sitting in a quasi-judicial capacity, if the evidence presented to you is sufficient upon which to make a decision.
And the last one on this is only as presented today at this hearing.
So that's the sworn testimony before you. Whether or not there were ex parte communications or public comment that was received, it may not be sworn testimony. So it's a harder hurdle on an appeal process to say that non-sworn testimony was substantial competent evidence. So it's a little bit difficult to address that way, but sorry for the legalese.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. That was my initial questions. I have some about the project, but I'll step back for a second.
Ms. Alvarez, you have a question?
No, I was going to say, it is a difficult process, I understand, to determine whether a property is significant or not, but one has to take a critical look at it, as the applicant has said. And this project has very weak details when it comes to colonial architecture. The proportions are off. If you look at the soffit, it's very inexpensively built. The spacing of the column is way off. And there's just things that would have been special to the project had it been a true neoclassical kind of inspired building, but it's very watered down. I don't know how else to explain it. So I think, although we didn't get a full explanation on why it wasn't considered historic by staff, I imagine that contributes to the decision.
Does anyone else have any questions? Ms. Dene?
I'm just looking at some of the other examples, and I'm looking at the 1234 Country Club Prado home example, and that was designated. So I'm trying to understand what the difference is, why this house is, the analogy is being made to a ranch-style house. And
Can I
I
answer
don't-
that?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's low to the ground,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which already is of an architecture that's less expensive. I don't know how else to put it. The 1234 I visited personally. That house has very nice detailing on the finish. It's a type of block that imitates brick. So as a gesture to be creative with the materials. The cornice is nicely done. The proportion of the windows and the shutters coincide. So there's a logic to the architectural components. It's raised from the ground. There's a nice proportion to it, where this one is like just sprawling. And I imagine there's nothing that contributes on the inside, which is, which is also a telling sign. Like a good architecture usually has details that are compelling inside and out. So that in particular example, I was familiar with.
Thank you, that was helpful, thank you.
Mr. Garcia-Pons, I think you had some additional questions or comments?
And I think it's similar to, and I remember I learned this the hard way with the precursor to the each individual criteria, the word significant. And that's, I think that's a difficult one, and I appreciate the staff doing it, I appreciate the application. But I think in this particular case, the word applied comes to mind, and I think Mr. Rodriguez talked about the pieces that could be easily taken off this building that, as Ms. Alvarez mentioned, true colonial or true typologies are something that just can't be added on and tacked on and taken off. And although the portico was original to the house, just looking at some of the details, it really looks like it was an afterthought to another type of building. Does it have a couple of items? Sure, the column is great. The door looks good. but I'm not sure if it has the significant, if it meets for me, the significant criteria for designation. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia Pons. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
And I'm sorry, one more thing is, I'm the first one to talk about designating things that aren't from the 1920s, so this is not easy, but that's my comment.
Thank you. So I would echo my fellow board members' questions and concerns. I think the report was very well done, and I think it makes its case very clearly. This is the second report that your organization puts forward, and we did designate the last one. So thank you for doing that strong work. That being said, I think this particular house, I would agree with all the comments that were made previously in terms of its proportioning and its sense of kind of being an applied decorative motif instead of properly masked and properly done with the masonry openings and the wings. So I think we've had discussion. I will open it for a motion. We closed the public hearing already? Yeah. Oh, we asked if there was folks on Zoom. Yeah. No. Yeah, so we'll open for a motion. Do we need a reason?
I assume that motion is based on the presentations and information presented today. If there's anything particular you want to note,
Based on the presentation today, yes.
Thank you. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion, Ms. Shield, and a second by Ms. Lubin. Can you call the roll? Oh, sorry, Ms. Payne. Yeah, I had it on the brain. Sorry. Sorry, Tom.
That's okay, he's been called Mr. Lynn.
Can we call the roll, please?
All right. Ms. Dene?
I just want to say the presentation was beautiful, and I very much appreciate it, and reluctantly, I'm going to vote in favor of the motion.
Ms. Spain?
Yes.
Ms. Everett? Okay. Mr. Garcia Pons?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Ms. Shield?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion passes 7-0.
Through the chair? I believe, I guess the property will be demolished. I don't know if there's any chance of saving any of the columns in the door and the door frame that have been described as the historic elements. Just before it all gets thrown in a trash bin, I would just maybe ask the owner to consider that.
May I make an additional comment? I've had experience demolishing a house. So much of it can be saved. I also headed the sustainability board. So, I mean, just about everything in that house, somebody will want. And I can talk to you about that.
All right, thank you all. Appreciate your time. Thank you. All right, moving on the agenda. Our next item is a city project update for the relocation of the gondola building.
Good evening, Hermes Diaz, Polyworks Director. The reason I'm here is to discuss the relocation of the gondola building. Can we put up the presentation?
Mr. Diaz, did you say relocation?
Yes, correct.
While we wait, I don't know, Mr. Diaz, if, I know this item has come before us.
Sure.
Before, if you want to just give us a real brief summary, or if the presentation's online already, if you're ready for that.
Okay, I must have done something wrong. There you go. I went too far. So yes, the reason I'm here is to have a discussion regarding the relocation of the gondola building. A lot of the body of this presentation you've already seen. I've been here already a couple of times on this very same item. Just a brief reminder, I guess, even though I probably don't need to. Construction of the Biltmore Hotel began in 1924, with the gondola building being an original accessory structure. And that location was used to have gondola rides for Biltmore Hotel guests to Tahiti Beach and Biscayne Bay. The Biltmore Hotel itself and the Country Club complex was designated National Hallmark in 1996. That is the current location of the gondola building, which, as we all know, it collapsed several years ago. Some of the photos of the existing building prior to its collapse, some additional photos. We are currently working through replicating the building with working on the plans, and the idea is for us to reuse as many parts that are possible to incorporate into the building. And these are just some of the examples of the things that, being worked on. The proposed location for relocation will be, as you see on the map, closer to Bird Road, still adjacent to the water, and a little bit of a little zoom-in area for the new location. The reason we prefer the gondola building to be placed at this location are several. For starters, it will be more accessible to the public from Bird Road. There's a lower likelihood of disruption to golfing activities during and after construction. Increased safety of golf players, construction workers, and future patrons with the issue of the golf balls going around. It will have better access to construction equipment and personnel. Reduce risk of damage to a nationally recognized golf course due to construction activities. I'd like to add that the Biltmore Hotel operations support the new location, and that we have checked with the grantor, because there's a grant involved in all this, and they have no objections to this location. And we wanted to make the board aware that we're going to be going to the commission, most likely at the next commission meeting, using the provision of the zoning code. We're going to ask the city to approve the relocation of the gondola building.
So you're not looking for action from us?
We're not. We're just making you aware.
Before we discuss, I guess.
Right.
We had this come before us before.
Correct.
We had extensive discussion. Can you refresh everyone, because I think some of us may have not been here, where we landed after all that discussion?
We did come.
Maybe put the
Sure.
presentation back on.
And we can go back and put.
Because I know most of it centered around the siting of.
Correct, yes. So we were actually, the original location where we wanted to put the gondola building was actually adjacent to the tennis complex, because we felt that was the place where it was actually going to have some usage. The problem with that location was that the grantor, the state of Florida, will not authorize it, because being a gondola building, they said that it needs to be by the water. So I came to this board, I don't recall the exact timeline, asking you to approve for the relocation. This board insisted on the gondola building being at its original location, so we actually came back and we got a COA. Did I say that correctly? All right. So we got a COA to maintain the gondola building at its current location. However, after further internal discussions, it's been decided to just bring this item to the commission and have them decide on it.
So is the commission going to know that we wanted to stay in the present location, or is this just done and you're letting them know?
We'll make sure to let them know.
I mean, it won't do
I mean,
any
we're not going to keep it from them.
And what are you going to use it for?
That's always been the struggle with this building. I mean, it's we don't know at the moment.
And what is the rest of that location that it's near used for now?
You mean where it's at right now?
Yeah, no, where are you going to move it? And the other building, what is that building used for?
No different what it is right now. Like
And what
we
is
haven't.
that?
I'm sorry.
And what is that used for? Isn't that like the equipment yard for the
The
Public
equipment
Works
yard
Department?
is behind that area is screened with some landscaping, but yes, that building yard it's the Biltmores.
Cities,
It's not the cities, it's the Biltmores.
oh, even worse, okay.
Right.
I think,
Is there any way to see exactly where that is? Because, I mean, I live right there.
I have
and
another.
I'm having
There
a
you go.
hard
That's a little
time.
closer.
Okay, and
Hermes, you can use the laser pointer if you want to go back to the other map. I think the red dot was a little difficult to see.
Sure. So I'm sorry.
It's off of Bird Road.
So what are you trying to see? This is the new location. This is the existing location.
so that's
Where's
Bird
Bird
Road
Road?
on the
Bird
bottom?
Road, it's Bird Road.
That is Bear Road.
It's adjacent to those new homes on Bird Road. There's a little
There's a little
path that goes up there to an equipment yard that's used for
Yeah,
storing
and that's
materials.
Granada on the
yes. on the
east side,
yeah.
okay.
correct. Yes.
Can we ask for the rationale behind, I mean, I think when we approved the COA, we were very clear about our rationale, right? For leaving it there in terms of its historic authenticness, right? And we understand that it's being reconstructed, but
Right.
we thought it was important to have in its original location.
Right.
And an additional component to that was kind of this public access and public use of the building, right? It was going to be maintained in a place that is accessible to at least the users of the golf course, whereas now tucking it away in the corner.
No one will go there.
Yeah, next
The
to.
public doesn't go there. That's not a public access road.
Yeah.
That's
So-
a private road by
The
construction.
the conversation with the Biltmore is that they will be allowing access to that location for anything.
Yeah, I mean, I
Look,
just,
the reality about this building that we could never find a real usage for it. And that was the issue at its current location, not at the location we're putting in. The reason we're proposing this relocation is to actually make it more accessible away from the golf balls. And, there's significant concerns of the potential of disruption and damage to the golf course during construction. So those are really, everything else it's in addition to, but those are the two, biggest reasons why we think this location
Yeah, that's
will be
really
more appropriate.
ridiculous.
I'm sorry?
That's really ridiculous. That you think that the construction work, restoring this building is going to harm the golf course? I mean, that you did a golf
Access to the
academy
location,
there.
yes, absolutely. I think there's a chance of that happening.
I have,
Mr. Garcia Ponce and then Ms. Shields.
Okay, thank
I
you.
have a question for staff for a second.
Sure.
We approved a COA, and the COA, I thought was pretty clear as to, yes, restore the building per the drawings that they provided in that location. Does that mean anything? Isn't that a real thing?
Correct. There has been a COA issued for the design of the reconstructed building as well as the location. My understanding from Mr. Diaz and from the city manager is that they will be proceeding to the commission pursuant to the exemption from the zoning code in section 1-101 of the city zoning code that allows, after a public hearing, the city commission to exempt certain city properties from the procedures in the zoning code.
So,
That's my understanding.
No,
And
so-
Mr.
No,
Diaz-
that is
yeah.
absolutely correct.
so the COA
Means nothing.
was properly made by us, and the city administration is using the available zoning code text to exempt it from,
Rather than
this board's
alter the
decision.
certificate of appropriateness or amend the certificate of appropriateness, that's my understanding.
Correct.
and I'm sure the city has ruled that that is possible.
That's the procedure that's been followed with other city facilities, city fire station, the city hall windows, as you know. So the city has availed itself of that process a few times.
And so you're here just to tell us what's happening. Thank you very much, Mr. Diaz.
Thank you. I think Ms. Shields, you had a question?
Yes, could you tell us what other locations that were investigated that would also meet the criteria for the grantee?
Anywhere along the waterway.
So you looked at what area on the waterway? Can you show us on the map?
We consider several locations. We try to, the idea is to keep it away from golf balls. And that particular location being close to Bird Road will potentially be more accessible in the future. That's pretty much the
So,
rationale.
so there's no other location that you considered?
That there were several locations that were looked at, but that was the one that we settled on.
I just feel like it's, I know the area, that's a storage, it's shielded because it's unsightly. It's not accessible to the public. There's no place to park unless you park in a residential home. And I'm just curious, there were no other locations.
Any location by the water, unfortunately, we have that situation. That location specifically, you actually do have an access road with, you could potentially get to it from Bird Road
And
without
Bryant
necessarily
Park?
going through the golf
Did you
course.
look at Bryant Park, at the park?
There were two conditions that the grantor gave us. One of them was that it needed to be within the Biltmore property. Because I agree with you, Bryan Island Parks will have been a great place for it, but it has to be within the Biltmore area. And the second thing they told us was it has to be next to the water. Those were the two restrictions that the grantor gave us.
Mr. Garcia Ponce.
One more question for staff, perhaps the city attorney. I think it's a repeat of a similar question. When this item is presented to commission, are they going to be provided the COA from this board? Is that a requirement because they're going around and using don't they have to know what?
The process in the zoning code doesn't require that. Traditionally, it wouldn't have gone to a board for approval before that, but I'll defer to Mr. Diaz and the city manager about the form of their presentation. I'm not aware that it's a requirement, but if that's something you would like to request.
We will not keep from the commission the fact that this board already looked at it and the COA was provided.
That's not what we're asking.
Right, there's a difference
I'm
between
not
not
sure then
keeping,
what.
not keeping and presenting, right?
Okay.
So.
I mean, I think it's the same thing.
Not a question to you, Mr. Diaz.
Sure.
So the question is going to be, and maybe a discussion amongst the board, is do we make a recommendation to staff and the city manager and the commission to include our initial COA, which was really very good and detailed, as part of the presentation to the commission at this time, in whatever format that takes, but at least have the COA in the agenda packet so that they can read it if they choose to. That's going to be my request of this board, not Mr. Diaz. So
Can I make that motion?
I don't know if through the chair.
Be able to make a motion?
We can do anything.
We can make, I think we can make a resolution to, or something similar to go to the commission with this item, is that correct?
The board is always able to make a recommendation or discussion that would be a part of the minutes and present it to the commission as either a board requesting action, a board resolution requesting action, or it can be included in the minutes presented to the commission.
Thank you.
I'm not aware when this is proceeding to the city commission, so I'm not sure of the timing of minutes and that, but you are
When
more
is
than
it
welcome
going
to
Most
make a
likely
motion.
at the next commission meeting,
Which is in,
August 26th. So I believe there's enough time for an item to be put on the agenda.
So you're presenting on that Tuesday a week, on the 26th?
That most likely, yes.
Okay.
so before we close the discussion, I do want to say, I agree with everything we've said here. I think the original location is the better location. I think the Biltmore and that gondola building have had golf balls launched at it since its inception, and it's been fine. That was not the cause of its demise. I understand that it's a difficult ask in terms of construction, but it's a temporary disruption. Whereas this building is going to be in its permanent location for, another 100 years, right? So I think this board is very clear. And that being said, I'll open the floor for a motion for a resolution, something along the lines of what Mr. Garcia Ponce was suggesting.
Well, you're better at this. I'd like to make a motion to include in your agenda item the certificate of appropriateness approval with the backup information that we had, that was very clear that this board wanted the gondola building to stay at its present location.
So Ms. Spain, that's a direction to staff that they will follow up with the city manager on how to proceed with that recommendation.
So staff being who?
I'm
Who's that?
staff.
But is it a direction to this staff or our historic preservation
Well, it's his
officer?
item.
It's my item, so.
It's his item, so he's the one that's going to have to prepare the item and include something in it from our staff.
Just to be clear, this board cannot direct staff. It's a
Right.
recommendation to
Got it.
staff that can be brought up to the city manager. You could also similarly make a request or recommendation to the city commission. So your recommendation.
Well, maybe that's better, a recommendation.
Up to you.
Recommendation to the city commission that they see, that, I just want them to see that.
That they be provided
They be-
the approved
which that
certificate
goes back to
of
staff.
appropriateness along with staff's presentation.
Yes. I guess that's right.
I second.
So we have a motion and a second.
I have
Any
a
friendly
comment.
amendments?
I have a comment. Can we ask to research alternative locations?
So you weren't here during the other several times that we've seen this? The COA is very detailed.
And I believe that COA goes into possible uses that would be after hours, so you're not,
The discussion included discussion of that. I don't know that the certificate of appropriateness itself
yeah.
determines the
maybe-
usage.
Then I would like to amend it and include the discussion that we had at that time.
That's a motion and a
Okay,
second.
so we have a motion and a second. So let's call the roll.
Who seconded the motion?
Ms. Eber.
Favor?
Thank you. Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Ms. Shield?
Yes.
Ms. Dene?
Yes.
Mr. Garcia Pons?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Spain?
Yes.
Ms. Ebert?
Yes.
And Mr. Silva?
Yes, motion carries unanimous.
Mr. Silva, if I could just clarify, just for the record, I just think it may be cleaner that this is a request for the city commission to consider rather than be provided, as it likely will be on the same agenda as the
That's fine.
item itself.
Does that mean they get the copy of the COA?
We can work on that with staff, and then separately, generally, when the board passes a motion requesting city commission action, the chair is automatically allowed to come present that. If it's going to be someone besides the chair who's going to attend the meeting, I would ask that you designate someone today to come speak on behalf of the board.
So the chair is Mr. Maxwell, who is not here. We don't know his availability. Can we designate him and an alternate?
So he's automatically the person, we would need to designate somebody else.
Understood.
Correct.
Can we do the chair and an alternate?
Generally, to avoid sunshine law issues, we tend to have just one member appear in their capacity as a historic preservation board member representing the position of the board.
So should that be the vice chair?
I think it would make more sense that there is someone that was present at this meeting that
Right.
would present the motion. Because Mr. Maxwell won't be familiar with the discussion unless he comes back and watches the videos and then didn't have any of his questions answered and all of that. So I would recommend picking someone from 2, 8, 7. How many are you now? 7.
The 26th.
Typically, what we do when we know a board member is attending, we'll request a time certain. You won't be heard before that time, but you may be heard after that time. So just so you know.
I would love to be that person, but I can't guarantee that I can do it that day. It's my husband's birthday. I'm not sure what's happening. So I don't know.
Any other volunteers?
Can't make
Can make it? Anyone else?
I'm out of town. I
The
think
item
Ms.
can also be-
Spain would be the perfect
She
person.
can't make it.
Can make it.
I can try to make it, but I don't want to not show up.
It's your husband's birthday.
It's his birthday, and
You can't do that to your husband.
I could. He's sort of used to
Nice
it.
present.
The person could always appear via Zoom, if that helps you, Ms. Spain. Also, no one needs to appear, just if you would like someone to appear.
I think it's important that somebody appears in some way or another.
All right, let me just say I'll do it, and I'll just tell Tom. You know.
I'm already there for 2 items that day, but I wasn't part of the original conversations. So that's why I feel that those of you who went through that, I don't know what your thoughts were.
And if staff could just send the information to me in advance. Staff, if you could just send me the information that's going, okay.
Of course. And I think in speaking with Mr. Diaz here, he suggested that perhaps as part of this item that goes to the commission, we will attach the background on your item so that it may be considered. That's Mr. Diaz's suggestion, that the previous COA and background transcript, et cetera, be included with your resolution.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that was the last item on our agenda. Are there any other discussion items?
I'm sorry. I would like to make a motion that staff works on design criteria for the French Normandy Village. And I'm thinking that maybe that should go into the site specifics in the zoning code that already have information on those properties.
Could look into it, yeah.
Which is a longer process for you, but it's what the architects would look at. And you could just print that out for any property owners.
It may be more easier for people to understand if it's not in site specifics, that it's a standalone document, because the site specifics
Well,
are really
I
like lot
agree.
1, block 2.
It has more teeth if it's in the zoning code.
Yeah, it can be,
you know.
we can look at how to do it.
Maybe it's both.
Ms. Payne, are you
To
talking
include the
specifically
districts?
about windows or about
Doesn't,
everything?
it just, it's a general, but there are like the Pioneer
colors.
Village on Santa Maria Street. It does talk about designs. It says that they're allowed to have wood fences there. And then if you go to the Chinese Village, it talks about the palette of colors that's allowed. So there are weirdly design criteria mixed within the zoning code. And once it gets in the zoning code, it has a lot more teeth as far as being able to regulate them.
I think that's a great idea. Also, I would suggest we have some sort of guidelines specific to windows and low E windows, and that would be helpful to residents.
Stephanie, can that be the same motion? Should they make 2 separate motions, or?
I heard that as a friendly amendment to
Friendly
Ms.
amendment,
Baines.
can we include that? Or should they be
Well,
separate?
right now, I want to keep it to the French
Let's keep it
Normandy.
separate, sorry.
Because I want it to go into the site specifics, and that's.
That's different than a guideline. I
It is,
understand.
It is.
Okay,
But I think it's important to have guidelines generally, but this is just for that one area. And then in the future, it's like when the city annexes property, an area, and they have like chain link fences on the front of their property that we would never allow. We don't require them to take those down, but if they want to replace it with something, they have to come into compliance with the zoning code. And so it would be the same for any of these properties within this district.
I'd like to second that motion.
I have a potential friendly amendment,
Okay.
and maybe it's a direction to staff to create design guidelines for historic villages, starting with the French Normandy Village, or
Oh,
do you
that's
just
fine.
want to be,
But I want to start with this one.
do we want to be, we want them all, but we want you to start with this one, or you just want to forget about the other ones right now?
Maybe we should just start with this one and then
I
we
get it.
can.
They're
That's
so
an
busy. I think it'd be easier for them to just start with this
Yeah.
one, and then
I hear you.
And,
they can pick away
and
at
then we'll
it.
have better ideas for the next one.
So Mr. Garcia Pons, your friendly amendment is rejected.
Unfriended.
Unfriend.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Can we, is this a voice vote situation?
Voice vote is sufficient.
Yeah. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Ms. Dene?
I don't think I need to make a motion on my question. I think I can just ask staff to look into that. Guidelines for windows.
Does anyone else have something? Ms. Abert?
I'd just like to say that I've asked for a certificate of condolence to be presented at the next commission meeting for Dolly McIntyre. So that's going to be, I think, one of the first things on the agenda. So. Yeah, that's, yeah.
So the only item that we have that comes to mind is I'm pleased to report that we received a Florida Trust for Historic Preservation Restoration Award for the Think Studio. Kudos to our architect.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Overall team.
Congratulations.
Nice.
Wanted to put that out there.
Excellent. Welcome back, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, just in case you all forgot. No, I was just going to comment on, I know there was a discussion or question about changing the meeting dates. I just want to make sure and make it clear here, and I'll have a conversation with the chair as well, that, decisions like that need to be made between the board and at a public hearing. And anything that comes through from that directive will come through this staff, and then we'll present it to the city clerk and all that. So maybe at the next meeting, we can have an item if that's something that wants to be discussed, and move it forward or not.
Yeah,
just depending.
Mr. Maxwell did speak to me before he left and asked me
Okay.
to bring it up, so I'm glad you did. Yeah, he's pushing to have it moved back to,
But we should talk about it here.
yeah.
Yes.
I don't,
Did he
I'm not
wanna-
sure what you're, I'm unfamiliar.
So
with
there
what
was a
you're saying.
request from Mr. Maxwell. Our meetings used to be on the third Thursday of the month? Wait, not Wednesday. Today is the third Thursday. Right, so when I started, I'll say 2 years ago, the meetings were previously on Wednesdays, the third Wednesday. And now, when there was a change to the location of the meeting, they had brought it back to Thursdays, where we are now, and there was a request to put them back on Wednesdays. So he's not here now. Did he want us to continue
I think he didn't want us to discuss it.
No, he wanted us to
Wants
bring it
us
up and discuss it,
to
but
discuss
if you
it,
want to
yeah.
defer that to the next
Let's
meeting.
do it at the
that's-
next
that's-
meeting.
Oh, right, if there's,
Notice.
yeah,
here,
I think it's important that
yeah,
he
I
could
think
be
he's-
here,
he's-
but,
Yeah,
yes, but I'm just reiterating that that's a conversation to have for the full board in the public setting, and any directive that comes from there comes to this staff, for me or Kara.
understood.
I've also been asked that these meetings used to be on Channel 77 live. Is that, the meetings used to be on Channel 77? I don't think they are.
thought they were.
I don't,
We'll confirm with the communications office.
I don't know that
Do
any
people have
meetings-
cable?
I don't know that any meetings are on there anymore.
yeah. I
No?
know.
I'm not aware, but we can verify.
We'll verify, and if not, it's the YouTube and the Zoom, or however you watch them online.
All right.
Is that
Let's
it?
entertain a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Please,
Motion to adjourn.
second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Gavel.